Which is why the color coding doesn't.
So it's funny, because I asked Jack, I said, are these two different colors right there? And he went, no, they're both blue.
Well, I
I'm like,
have
"Good,"
been
'cause that's-
they're pretty slight, even I looked at that and thought, well, it could be a
That's fine.
bit. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, guys, I don't know how to rectify this. Basically, it's acting like the host has a meeting in progress. So I'm afraid that other people are not able to get in, just like are experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing and what Belle's experiencing.
Okay.
So I don't exactly know what to do, but I think I'll just record the meeting and we can proceed.
Yeah.
And I will basically.
Right.
Yeah, and you guys have slides. Unfortunately, the members of the audience won't necessarily be able to see all of the
Yeah.
things.
So I just tried to get on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside. Yep.
So I'm just gonna do one thing here, which is basically.
You wanna see the old one or?
Yeah. Which are maybe the old one, because maybe they're two.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, I thought maybe like she lost 2 years.
Such as it hasn't, it's the drainage is going in so much. So I think that the water is low. I downloaded mine directly from Dell when it came in via email. And then I went and I was like, I'm not gonna download the agenda because I already have it, and I downloaded all the other.
One from the drive.
So now I've downloaded one.
Roads do some ditching, you know, I think that we need to improve the drainage. Yeah, it is. We also have water with the pipe.
But like Matt Lewis was asking me, he was talking about, the utility properties on Aspen. That it wasn't draining.
Thanks for coming.
Somewhere.
I think it's something to play with. Really like the reasons.
Yeah.
Really go and consult. Yeah, get it.
direction coming.
We can help.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I think that's.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Andrew actually come to my offer and clear it. And then
That's just something I go back and look at that state or forget it.
more, and I dig up mine every summer.
Yeah.
Just started, but kind of like,
I never been there.
you know, I like thought of that.
She's the name.
But and that's kind of very. That goes way over itself.
Orchestra or ballet also.
Yeah.
The art.
Yeah, it's the woman's phrase.
They
It's like the way we right, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It mentioned the new aquatic center.
Yeah.
He's gonna stay with one sport.
You'd like to look at my computer for your slides?
Oh, no, it's fine. I got them on here. So I'll just at least do that. So they're
Oh,
part
I
of the
see.
recording and stuff.
Not wonderful this
Yeah.
season, he'll play something else,
Uh,
rugby or soccer or something like
Wish they had rugby, but-
that.
Get out. Also big I am.
Not too many. I suppose.
Not yet.
Yeah, never played lacrosse before.
Yeah.
So Lori.
I graduated in my school just before lacrosse came into the.
Yeah, it absolutely wasn't the thing. You'd heard of it, but it's like some, you know, they played in Massachusetts.
Not far away.
Some far away place.
Okay, I'm giving up on this. I can't even open the PowerPoint on her thing, so. Okay, I'm just gonna get started here with the manager's report, and sorry to the audience that you guys cannot see this, but. All right, so this is our general manager's report. And it's, I'm gonna start with the BCPUD water supply memo. So we have our rainfall data, again, for those of you trying to follow along. We have,
So we have it here.
okay,
Yeah.
oh, great.
Yeah.
I can.
It's on the board.
Yes, okay,
There you go.
so, yes, yes, it's just the. Yeah, so as of April 2024, the district had received 33.75 inches of rain since July 1, 2023. That's the beginning of the rain year, which is slightly above the average of 31.23 inches for that time of year being, April. And so moving on to our rainfall progression analysis. So a rainfall progression analysis indicates there were only 35% of years in our historical record that had more rain by the end of April compared to this year. Again, this is the 23-24 year that we're talking about. Using this progression correlation analysis, we are projecting that we will have 35 inches of rain by the end of the year. So basically that blue dashed line is where we're sitting right now. On the x-axis, that's where our current total is, and we're effectively extrapolating from there what our end of the year will be. Obviously, given that it's April and that the year ends in July, we're really close to the end of the year. And so, yes, obviously the predictive analysis is pretty close unless we have some torrential downpour in the next month. Okay, so moving on to our production and consumption in April. So production, again, this is basically, treated water. And so in April 2024, water production in the district averaged 65,120 gallons per day. This is up from our March production, which averaged 57,000 gallons per day. Consumption was in April averaged 61,740 gallons per day, which averages out to 106 gallons per day per connection. This is up from March consumption, which averaged 58,482 gallons per day, approximately 100 gallons per day per connection.
And is that kind of average to see it go from, I'm assuming like there are holidays in there.
Yeah, you're saying to have it be more in April than, I think that we're probably within the error here. This is not like big news. Just to let you know, the thing that really affects production is basically plant closure. So that would be like rainy days. So definitely in March, there were a few more rainy days than there were in April. There were, more, so that's basically what that impacts. But yeah, one of the things when we talk about the agenda and our meeting going forward, I would like to expand this section of our memo and have a little bit more data around consumption and production. I think it would be nice to see what April was like this year versus last year. There's just some, again, this is sort of historically how we've done the water memo, but just like kind of keep all of this, I'd say pay extra attention to the memo right now because it will come up later. And I'll suggest that we just talk about generally what you guys would like to see in the supply memo. Okay, water storage. Woodrow 1, this is basically our, looking at, this is again the volume stored in the reservoirs. And again, this is predicted and not predicted, it's modeled, okay? And so, and just to also point out, I prepped this when at a staff meeting or prior to a staff meeting, or prepped this after a staff meeting in which the operators had indicated that they thought that the reservoirs had just stopped spilling. And then they shared with me that no, indeed, they were still spilling very slightly, but they still are actually spilling. And so that's, you don't see that on yours and you can't see that up here, but basically I indicated that they actually are still spilling relative to what you guys are looking at there. And so then that moves us to the modeling of the Arroyo Hondo Creek flows. So the creek flows remain much higher than in recent drought years and continue to meet district demand. April flows were estimated at, this is probably, I'm going to take this, sorry, because I think it's probably Bell.
Okay.
Hello. She is not here. Yes, this is Georgia. Yes, I know that is the case, and we started our meeting about a half an hour late as I was trying to deal with that technical difficulty. So I'm afraid I don't know what to tell you, except that we're recording the meeting. And I mean, we're here in person if you're able to get here. And otherwise I would advise you to just check out the recording afterwards. And I'm sorry about that. Okay, yes, yeah, sorry, Bruce, yeah. If I. Yes, if we can work it out, I will email you mid-meeting and let you know that we're able to receive your report. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That was Bruce, who Sherry and Bruce were scheduled to give a presentation later. So
They may be able to come in, but.
well, we can't even get the meeting. Nobody can join. I mean, I could set it up as a different meeting, but then I'd have to send out the invitation to everybody and it just feels like,
Just continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
and yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so we are recording it, so hopefully. Although obviously for presenters, it's problematic. Okay, so just to continue, the creek flows remain much higher than in recent drought years and continue to meet district demand. April flows were estimated at 230,000 gallons per day. Flows in March, this is obviously looking backward just to kind of see what they were and what they are now. Flows in March were estimated at 250, so we're slightly down from what we were in March. Flows through May are estimated to remain high at 200 gallons per day. That should say gallons per day, not GFP. That's a vestige of my science years. Very famous protein. Anyway, we have not had to divert from the wood rat reservoirs, and that's literally the definition of the creek flows are meeting district demand. Obviously, if they weren't, then we'd be starting to draw from the reservoirs. All right, so moving on, again, this is slightly different, but I just kind of wanted to have a little more like, for me, what is sort of structure around the general manager's report. And so you'll see what I'm thinking I'm going to be doing now is just kind of, this is not every meeting I've attended since I last reported to you, but like highlighting some of the kind of important meetings that I've attended. So one of those meetings was with the Bolinas Fire Protection District. And this was around a PG&E grant to do fire fuel reduction, which they have received. BCPUD admin met with, that's me and Bell, met with George Krakauer, the fire chief, and Isaac Taylor, the administrative manager with the fire district. They just basically described, I mean, they'd already alerted us to some of this, but they were just letting us know that they'd actually been granted the funds, and it's really to address the understory. I know that Jennifer was really hoping that it would address some of the larger logs, but really, as those don't present fire, immediate fire danger, it's really around this fire fuel reduction, and that's the kind of, kindling below. They are still working on the logistics, kind of the environmental studies and permitting and hiring of this crew. They have basically a set window that they would hope to complete this work. And they're going to basically keep us apprised of all of this work. And there's really nothing for us to do, but it's good news in terms of, just addressing some of the precarity of that grove. at least in terms of fire risk. Okay, so moving forward, I attended a Marin Water Managers Quarterly Meeting. This is a Zoom meeting with other managers in Marin, and is basically mediated by Supervisor Rodoni. We discussed the countywide approach to sea level rise. I actually talked to you guys about this a little bit last time in terms of the Coastal Marin, the Association of Coastal Marin Villages. And there's really not much to report here. It's just really the beginning stages of all of this. And they've effectively assured us that, that comprehensive approach to sea level rise will not neglect the coast. Obviously, with much of the population being on the bay side in Marin, it's inevitable that that's going to be a major focus of this study. But we're basically, there in attendance at these meetings to ensure that, our voice is heard and that we're not neglected from that report. Also, there was talk about this One Water initiative with the Department of Public Works. That was Rosemary Gaglione. One Water will encourage collaboration among all water agencies and aim to ensure the entire county is compliant around state, county, and local regulations. For instance, with the model water efficient landscape ordinance. I think this is, I don't know to what extent you guys have discussed this. I was not aware of this ordinance. And I think, maybe you guys can just remark on it now, but it's just, an effort by the county to essentially assure, obviously we as a local water agency have jurisdiction around water use in our district, but there are broader implications and state regulation around like drought management, etc. And, I think it's important that we're aware of those and be sure that we're compliant. And also, and basically the county is taking a more active role to make sure all of the different water managers are really that there's some standardization across water districts and what is allowed in terms of like the types of appliances you're using, are they water efficient, etc.
I'm sorry, for the landscaping, are we supposed to, I'm looking at it right now, or is that a local agency responsibility to?
Yeah, so that's kind of.
That's how it's reading to me.
Yes, that's what I was also, Grace, when I looked at it, I was like, are we doing this? Yeah, because I think that I have not heard you guys talk about making sure that we're compliant with landscaping ordinance. And I don't know if it's really that we spell out what that ordinance is and we just don't have very strict policy around it. I need to look into it more. And some of this again is gonna basically be driven by DPW. And if they're telling us, hey, you need to be compliant with our new county-wide regulation around this, then obviously we'll do it. But I'll investigate this further. Again, it was the first I'd heard of it. And it wasn't actually a focus of this meeting. It was kind of just secondarily, and she had mentioned this. And so I was like starting to look into it and realizing I didn't know whether, what our policies were around agricultural, sorry, not agricultural, landscaping.
No, we've always had the policy that what people did after the water meter was their business, that they have as much water. If they've got a limited water use permit, they can only use that much. But we have never, we've encouraged people to do water-wise landscaping. And, I think there's been plenty of publicity in town about what that looks like for years. But this sounds more like somebody's supposed to go approving the gardens.
Yes, that's what I was reading
Which
too.
is a whole nother ball of wax.
Yes.
Sorry, good to know. I'd like to continue to just have that somewhere on the radar.
Yep. Okay.
We don't have stuff.
Yes. Yeah, no, and maybe, anyway. So, and and moving on from One Water, just to talk about this, SB 552 and the County Drought Resilience Plan. So SB 552 mandates that in concert with the state, local governments, proactively, hi, Belle. Yeah, are you gonna, okay. So mandates that in concert with the state, local governments proactively prepare for drought. Again, this is the beginning stages, but the county is convening a task force to begin this work. Our first meeting is scheduled for 5/14/2024. You may notice that it's 5/15/2024. So I went to that meeting yesterday. And I mean, basically, it's, again, at the very beginning stages, it's not clear that it's really related to us. The county is mandated to basically act as there are individual wells, domestic wells, and there are what are called water service, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name, but basically it's a very tiny water district that's serving fewer than like 19 people. So the county is effectively mandated through this bill to, through this legislation to ensure that that they are tracking all of those domestic wells and these very tiny water service providers. We're larger than them, but they effectively have convened, water managers effectively to request their help. Because basically they haven't been keeping track of any of these individual wells, and they're essentially also having to coordinate, a response to drought for all of these different individuals. And they're essentially saying like, hey, how do you manage, drought in your district? Is there material you can share with us? So I was hoping it was going to be more beneficiary to us. It looks like it's more like helping them out, which is, fine. I think it's important to manage drought and, and water as a kind of a common resource. But that's basically what that's about.
Was it your sense that some of this is coming from the kind of tapping out of groundwater, groundwater world?
Yes,
using,
I am sure that much of this is like driven by the Central Valley and the fact that, I mean, it was driven by the drought itself. So there's all kinds of, like we have actually compliance associated with SB 552 as well. It's just not related to that particular aspect that this action committee is, convening around. And our mandates are pretty minimal. We basically have to talk about what our response to drought is and share that with the state and, have it be available. But we're, effectively, there's not a specific, this is driven with a really tight deadline that the county has. We don't have that tight deadline. So it's not as worrisome for us or, problematic. But anyways, I kind of prepared this before I fully understood that it wasn't actually super pertinent to our district.
We don't have to track personal wells in our district.
No, we don't. That's the county's problem.
Okay.
I said that I was going to do this, I think last time, and I did, which is moving on to a meeting I had with Stinson Water. So Bella and I went over to Stinson Water and met with Kent Nelson, their general manager, and Mark Matheson, who is their office and grants manager. It was just an hour meeting. So it was, definitely an introductory meeting, but I felt like it was super beneficial. I mean, my particular angle was to really kind of, pick their brains about like what kind of software are they using, because that's part of what I'm trying to do is just sort of like digitize much of our records, and it was just helpful to just kind of create that connection with them, and I foresee that we'll continue to communicate with them. In fact, I'm scheduled to meet with Mark on Friday about another unrelated project, but and definitely around the special report that I gave last time around smart meters, or, there's a lot to be learned from them because they already have them, and just kind of what the advantages are. And they kind of went through that course of the, stepping up their kind of automated reading. And I think will be helpful to continue those discussions. I also attended, moving on to the next meeting, was the Aqua JPIAA Spring Meeting Summit. Unfortunately, Grace could not join me. No, it's rather boring, I would say, because it's just like our insurers and it's their like annual board meeting where they're sharing their finances and stuff. And it was like interesting from an anthropological point of view in that like I'd never been in that world. And I was like, wow, this is boring. No. No, it was, it was interesting. And part of what I was expressing here is, not surprisingly, they talked, because they do several things for us. They provide our employee benefits, liability, property, workers' comp, and we are, get our healthcare through them. And they talked about, skyrocketing healthcare costs, which is obviously something that people are like superficially aware of, but it's definitely has an impact on our operations. And then the other thing that I did was attend sexual harassment prevention, which was really interesting because I've done so much sexual prevention harassment training over the years, just like in my previous job. And I also taught, so I would like have to do it, so much of it. And it was all webinar based, and this was in person. And it was just really interesting to see how much more I got out of an in-person interaction. The guy who was leading the discussion was very good. He was a legal attorney who works for Aqua JPIUD within their employment law. And he was just really effective. It really came at it from a, empowering you as a leader. This was all directors and general managers there, and just like seeing this as like an extension of your leadership. And it also reminded me that you all have the same mandate that I do, which is 2 hours of training every 2 years. And just to make sure that you guys are actually up on that. So I'll probably reach out to you individually and make sure that.
I think we get certificates.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
they'll
filed
keep
mine
track.
away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll look in, but if any of you guys have gone beyond that period, then I'll be reminding you. There are despite the fact that I said the web-based training is very boring, it's available to you. So if you guys need to do that, you can.
I think
that's
done
what
the
I've
Aqua
always done, the
JPIA
web. Yeah.
web-based training.
But it's a collective group. If we see questions and comments that
Are you
people are
okay?
able to do live time.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on, and I just felt like by the time I set up a new one and sent out a new link, it's just. Okay, and then the other thing that he brought up as like an anecdote was just basically, I guess, again, because he's coming from this employment law perspective, but just talking about our familiarity with our employee handbooks. And that's not something that at this point I am super familiar with, but it's something that directors and the general manager should be familiar with. And so I will probably bring that back for us to revise. He was basically saying, don't be the district that has, takes another district's employee handbook and forgets to even change the name and just like sticks it in a bookshelf somewhere.
I think we have, or at least I have a printed version of this, but if I'm gonna go electronic, that would be great.
Definitely. Okay, and then operations, moving on to our operations update. So that's a summary of meetings. Just the well project update. This is on April 19th. We turned in our resubmission packages to Marin County as part of the long drawn out application process for seeking coastal development permits. This is just as a reminder, I'm sure you guys all remember, but basically to get the ability to bring the resource recovery well and the wharf well at 31 Wharf and connect them to our mains so that we can provide additional water source to the district, especially during emergency. Unfortunately, the coastal permitting around this has been really difficult. and very extensive. But I'm expecting any day to hear. I am basically, the planner I know is actively looking at our, our resubmission. Moving on to Azola in Wood Rat 1 Reservoir. So you'll see a picture there that the operators took of the reservoir, and it's not looking good. It's completely covered with Azola. And I know that Jennifer's given you guys updates on this, but basically what happened was the Azola bloomed much earlier. Usually it's blooms or when there's extensive light for longer periods of time. And so it would kind of be this time of year, and it started doing it over the winter. And effectively it happened pretty quickly and it has overwhelmed the crew. And so what I'm suggesting is that you're gonna have to do what you guys did a couple of years ago, which unfortunately is around $20,000, which is to bring in a crew to actually deal with the Azola, remove it all, and kind of start back at square one. I think I would suggest that it's my hope that we revisit the discussion about proactive management of this resource. I know that this is a discussion and a lot of work that Jennifer's done a lot of work into this, but it was a while ago. And I'd like to basically bring that back up because I think that my general impression is that we have pretty poor water quality in our reservoirs. And because of that, a total reluctance to use them. And so we essentially have this huge resource that is costly in terms of, what we have to do around management of it. But we're not managing it to its and improving water quality and that we can draw from it enough. And so again, this is obviously a much it's an in-depth conversation that needs to happen. It's not going to happen tonight, but I just wanted to put it on your radar. Okay, and then some miscellaneous updates. Our IT contracted services, our longtime IT consultant, Chris Backenstos, notified us that he will no longer be able to serve BPUD, and we're sad to see him go and are very grateful for all the support he has provided to the district over the years. We are in the process of vetting new IT consultants, and once we figure out this plan, I'll bring it forward to the board at next meeting. This is, as far as Bella and I are concerned, this is pretty urgent. And in fact, we met with an IT consultant Tuesday, and yeah, it was a really pleasant meeting, and it's likely the direction we're going to be going. But I'll bring that forward next meeting. But just to point out, it's going to be a lot more expensive than we are accustomed to because effectively Chris really undercharged us. And also, obviously, as I look to digitize more of our records there and create more kind of synchronous workflow on the cloud, there's a lot more IT needs. And we're obviously going to be super diligent in trying to do it in a cost-effective manner. But as a reality check, we really have put very little towards this previously. And continuing on to the bike path. So it looking more and more likely that we will need to seek coastal development permits for this project. We are supposed to meet with county planners this month, May, and to get a definitive answer to find out if there are any workarounds in any portions of the path. It's not great news, but stay tuned. Unfortunately, the county has been pretty unresponsive in terms of scheduling that meeting. So we're kind of just like the ball is in their court and we're waiting to move forward. I'm not sure if they're just busy or if they're behind the scenes trying to work something out for us. Like that's maybe hopefully what's happening. And they come back to us with really great news. And that is the end of my manager's report. Is there any questions? Yes, Andrew.
When you say the coastal development permit required, they're not gonna allow us to just repair in kind?
It's the actual use, it's the change of use that is initiating that. Is that, or sorry, are you talking about the bike path? Sorry, I have coastal permits at the Wazoo. I'm like, what? The bike path, yes. No, it's because of the proximity of the path to an Isha.
Yeah.
And so it basically means that we could do it under repair and maintenance, but repair and maintenance, when you're in that buffer zone, is so restrictive that effectively we couldn't leave any material behind, i.e. asphalt. Like nothing could be done there. Even mechanized equipment can't be used there. So that's definitely something like I'm really concerned about is just, we already have a coastal permit related to that bike path. That was from 2008. And you know, I think effectively what this reading of the local coastal plan is telling us is that we can do very minimal repair of that existing path, like even just basic maintenance. So I think it's really problematic. And obviously these are things that we hope to discuss with the county in May, is understand, like, even once, let's say we accept, okay, fine, we have to go through coastal permitting and seek coastal permitting. What will that coastal permit allow us to do as far as maintaining this path going forward? We don't want to just be back in the same position every 5 years when we need to do some repair on the path.
Thanks.
So. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for putting that presentation together. It's really clear, and also the links that you added just really made it so easy for us to read through and digest. So thank you.
Welcome. I see it's me. Sure. Little technically frazzled right now. I'm like, oh God, low battery.
Yeah. You want me to keep going?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. Next on the agenda are committee updates. So the first one is the volunteer committee update from the resident permit parking plan committee, but
They can't get
they
online.
can't get on.
Yeah.
So I would tell you that.
They're gonna do it next month.
Okay, in our binder is a 2-page memo that's reporting on this progress, and it is making progress.
Yeah.
And there's going to be 2 areas where parking permits will be required. One on Brighton Avenue. Restricting parking from 11 at night to 5 in the morning, and then on the road from the museum to the beach. So we'll just wait for that committee to make the report at the next meeting, but it's moving along. And the plan is for the BCPUD to ultimately be responsible to issue the permits to people who qualify for it. And prevent a lot of people from just coming to town and setting up camp on one of our roads and spending the weekend or more just camping on the road. Yeah,
Jack, will the permits, excuse me, will the permits apply to just Bolinas residents in general, or only those who live on Brighton and Wharf roads?
They will apply to only residents that live there. In order to get coastal commission buy-in from the county. So I think DPW was the agency that was applying for the coastal permits. And they were obviously only bringing forward plans that would actually get, wouldn't be appealed by the coastal commission. It was very clear that that would only happen if it applied to residents in specific areas. So it's not like, gonna solve all parking problems for residents of Bolinas, like in terms of, you can. Anyways, so, but again, it will come forward. It's something that Belle and I have been also independently working on with the county and the sheriff's department. And I think it will be, we'll probably even have more to report in June, so it's probably fine. Although, again, I apologize to both Sherry and Bruce for the technical difficulties.
Well, it's interesting, some of those residents don't even have their own parking, they only have street parking.
all right. Move on to ad hoc committee updates, and number 3, which is the building committee. Is there anything that you want to report?
We have a memo. I just was kind of leaving it up to the committee itself if you guys want to report out on some of our work.
Either one of you.
Sorry, yes, so we've met and again, you put together this great notes of, we had a meeting here. We visited some of the sites, looked at all the buildings and the infrastructures. I want to make sure I'm not mixing meetings because I was thinking we also met with, not Stu, but Andrew.
Yeah, that's up for later. That was the septic drainage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think really the next steps were, you were gonna help
Yeah, we're,
talk with the staff and talking about program and use and
Mhm.
how the facilities are currently working, what they could be, how they could be better, how they could be consolidated in terms of program.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we.
Yeah. Yeah, we're starting by just kind of assessing the existing infrastructure. It's part of, I think it's good for Georgia to just understand what we have and the state of each building and how much potential repair it would take in the future. Also, there is kind of this assessment of, well, we have to replace this office building, and maybe we were starting to shift down the road of having a modular temporary unit, but perhaps some of our existing buildings are in a state where we could reuse them, like potentially the lab building. This is very, very conceptual at this point, so I don't want anyone to like get hopeful, but we thought that we would maybe step back and take this kind of comprehensive view of our district and do this big assessment so that we can apply that to our office needs, to our operations needs, to financial implications down the road with capital improvements and, you know, repairs. So I'm just starting to try to meet with Stu and Georgia and Bell about like, what do we actually need in terms of our space requirements and what do we have? So it's kind of like a programmatic assessment, and then hopefully that'll generate an idea of what we need and what we can afford.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. I think the only comment I might have had in the notes, I didn't see it, is we really refer to it as an owner program. as
Oh,
opposed
okay.
to an owner.
Okay,
The owner program is developing. From the owner about that.
okay.
All right, I'll move on to item 4. These are standing committee updates, Mesa Septic Flood Control and Roads Committee. That's Kevin and Kirsten are named as the
Yeah.
on the committee.
Pull up the notes.
We have some notes in our binders. Anything you want to report or?
By the way, I really appreciate the notes that Georgia's typed up from the meetings. They're really helpful to read about what the building committee did. As somebody who's not on that committee, I think they're just a nice resource. Sorry, I'm just pulling up said notes for the septic drainage committee. We met with Andrew Spalding here. He sort of talked us through some of the issues that he sees recurring with drainage on the mesa. So it's very enlightening to hear about all the work he does on a regular basis that I sort of wasn't aware of.
Mhm.
So we just talked through what those problem areas are, how BPUD could better support him, if there's equipment needs, you know, what sort of funds we have available for these kind of improvements.
And our responsibility to
Yeah.
them and how much time, you know, we'd like him to start to capture how much time that takes for him to do. You know, maybe servicing a drainage ditch versus something else that BPUD is ultimately responsible for, so. It was our first meeting.
Yeah.
With Georgia on board, and so I think it was really informative, and we're developing some action items that will eventually be employed.
Great, thank you.
These action items look really on point to me.
Yeah.
I've looked at developing policy and stuff, I think that's great, I think it's time to, you know, happen along with it. Revisiting that, because I know things have come up and it's been confusing because it's different people's memories rather than actually be something written down, so I'm really.
All right, next area of the agenda are recommendations, adoptions, and approvals, which are on for action. So special reports on for action, item 5, the Galena Eucalyptus project. This is a request for the BPUD to be a co-applicant on the county permit application. We have in our binder a memo from John Posey and John Alexander Green, who are both here. And so if you would like to address the board on your request or
Yeah,
ears.
thanks, Jack, and thanks everybody for having us here tonight. Always good to be here, means things are happening. And indeed, we are here to officially request that you officially respond to our request to be co-applicants as we go to the county for permitting. And that's the long and the short of it. I would like to introduce a new member of our group. This is Ashley White, right here. And also on the bike path thing in the ESHAs, in the WRA report, there's a good section on justifications for reduction in buffers around the ESHAs. And they pretty much lay out a strategy with high visibility fencing, training personnel, and they just list a lot of countermeasures that will allow our project to proceed within the buffer zones of these mostly stream and pond wetlands is what they're talking about. And I would think that same strategy would apply to the bike path, but worth looking at that part of the report. Don't have the page numbers for you, but you'll find it. And so a bunch of us are here, happy to answer any questions. And again, thank you.
Anybody on the board have any questions or want to discuss this proposal? Is there a time frame that you have for getting this application in?
It'll be coming up in the not so distant future. We've just been fine tooth combing the WRA report just to make sure we get the optimum product there, as it's gonna be super duper important. So there might be a little more back and forth with them, and then I think we're ready to submit, right, Jonna?
Yeah, we're pretty sure we have all the supporting documents we need, except for possibly an archaeology report, which we're hoping to get in during the process, rather than pay for it now, we just don't have the money, so we want to go get the ask for the permit and do that archaeology report while the work is happening.
So they may approve it contingent on you having an archaeology report.
Yeah.
And then it goes out to the broader community, if they want to be there and present. For
Yeah.
any kind of any kind of dig or work that's going on.
Oh, I don't know much about the archaeology side of it, we've been
That's
talking
my
to Sean.
experience.
Yeah. So you're asking anybody that is an archaeologist if they want to come dig while the,
No.
oh, okay.
No, it's just if they find anything that could be historic that would suggest that the site is maybe historic archaeology.
Yeah, as far as we feel with the tree removal, we're talking about bringing it down to the ground. When we talked about using them for the Salmon Creek restoration, it was more of a pulling up earth and unearthing things than what we're really proposing right now with our tree removal methods.
Although there is stump grinding, which in effect is digging into the ground a bit, but you're only excavating what is actual tree root
Yeah.
material, so you're not, it's not as disruptive as upending and tearing a root ball out of the ground as the salmon project would have done.
All to say, we feel like the supporting documents are there except for that one. And so as the ESA finalizes, we feel like this permit is ready to go.
So you'll be drafting up the document itself and then bringing it to the BPUD?
Yes, there will be a cover letter from Sean Kenyon's, the index of the supporting documents you've seen here, and that will be what we submit for the coastal permit.
Okay, so then we would put it on our agenda and vote on it as to signing on it. Basically, if we approved it, then we would sign on as a co-applicant, separate idea.
Well, we're hoping today you vote yes or no as to being a co-applicant.
Oh, okay.
And
In
then
principle,
in principle, based on everything you know from the reports we're sharing, nothing major is changing in our supporting documents. So we're hoping this is enough information to use that for you to say yes or no today.
Got it. Okay. So does anybody on the board have any questions or, and if not,
I have a few comments.
sure.
I just want to say publicly that John is my wife.
Yeah.
Lucky man. I do say so myself.
Just for the transparency of it, I'm gonna be making decisions about this. I want to also just thank your group because this is a massive amount of work and, or maybe applaud your group for sticking with it for these years and doing all this hard work and getting all these pieces assembled, which is a big deal. And I want to also just say it on the record and something for BPUD to look into with our legal counsel is if there's mentions of this ESHA environmentally sensitive habitat area. And it's starting to potentially affect our bike path and it's our land. And what I'm interested in learning is if we are hamstrung or it's prohibited to remove or update things, then who is liable for things happening that go wrong? And I don't know if your group has looked into that, but if we can't fix a bike path and someone gets injured on it, or if we can't take down trees and those trees fall on people, then who is assuming the responsibility of all that?
Well, part of our project with dangerous trees up there and the grove goes dangerous by the day is that we must have, town must have ESHA flexibility, if you will. And so I'm pretty hopeful in reading the WRA report that, and that's gonna be critical to the bike path stuff as well, as you have to make a connection there. To not have the ESHAs totally restrict this town from taking care of itself. So it sounds horrible, from the bike path issue, you're gonna have to have this, that, and the other thing. But I think in conjunction with the tree removal, I think it gives us a very strong standpoint. That's my guess. That's all.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I supported your group when you were called Wildfire Safe Polinas, and I support the Eclipse project now, and I think we voted as a board, saying as much that we support your project, so. I would have liked to see a specific application, permit application, I know you're not quite there yet, but, voting to say, I don't know if we can make it conditional on actually seeing the permit application, but it just feels like we're sort of signing a blank check without having, seen the permit application, so. I'd prefer to vote on a specific application, but, I do support your project and I would like to be a co-applicant on the permit application, I just, I feel a little strange voting in support of that without having seen it yet. That's all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I want to see how the rest of the board, let me go around the table, how do you feel about what Kevin is saying?
And I hear what Kevin's saying, and I'm wondering if there's, I also understand that they have been coming to us for thousands of years. With more and more and more documentation, which I think has been crucial to the project, like what you've done has been needed. I don't want to hold them up. I'd be willing to have a special meeting. I agree that I like to see what I'm signing off on, but I want to facilitate this in every way possible, so if people are more comfortable having the piece of paper in front of them and having a special meeting, I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm fairly comfortable approving it in principle tonight. Reserving the right to go, wait a minute, we'd like this change made or something. I don't know, I'm pretty comfortable with it either way,
Okay,
but I'm in favor of the project.
right, yeah, I think you already have the support of the board as being in favor of the project, but this point is well taken about, well, what exactly are we voting on? Let me keep going around, but how you feel?
Yeah, I agree with Grace about the flexibility to kind of change some sentences or some wording when it comes around.
So kind of wait to see the actual document and then we could vote.
Well, I guess I would ask, what more do you guys need to do?
Yeah.
In terms of, like, is there a big expense that you would undertake
No,
if we
it's-
said yes and then we change things?
Just a matter of getting dialed in with the final draft of the WRA report, and we're just being super diligent as we go through that document, because once we say you're done, they're done. And that could be a day, it could be a week, but it'll be soon, and nothing else. There is nothing that's gonna change, and of course, we would bring you the final document to be signed before we submit it to the county for you to review and approve. I think more than anything, we would just like to walk out of here saying they are going to sign this when we are ready. We know that just from public relations standpoint and from a spiritual, moral peace of mind standpoint. So that's all it is.
What do you say?
And so that's beyond just a letter of endorsement. You're looking for us to be the co-applicant.
You are.
You are managing all the funding and all the permitting of the logistics. We are just, yeah. So I would agree with you, you know, it would be good to actually see that document, hoping that that wouldn't hold you up. If tonight you're looking for an indication of our support, I would agree with that. And then I just want to go back to the archaeology report. I mean, you're gonna have to do that, and I'm just wondering why pause? Are you waiting?
We don't have money.
And it's about $2,000 to write the report.
We just don't, I mean, we know we need money to actually submit for the permit and we just barely have that, so. We are
Right.
waiting to have,
So you're gonna submit for the permit and they're gonna come back and say.
bring it.
"Nah."
I mean, they might not.
I'm pretty sure they will. It will be part of their checkpoint, having just done that myself. And so what I was speaking to, they may consider this part of the sacred lands inventory and having to go back to Native American consultation. So that's where they will go to the tribes if it's identified that they have jurisdiction over that. And they will probably say, we would like to be present if there's during the course of the work to ensure that nothing's found that could be indicated to Native American. So that's the process I know, and we didn't actually have anybody has shown up, but just, I'm pretty sure you're gonna.
Was that
have
for
to
a
do it.
tree removal project?
Yeah, well, it was for a construction project, but part of that is also tree removals and care and holiness.
Yeah.
So what's your timing like, because we don't want to slow things down. Grace suggested we could even have a special meeting, but if we told you tonight, bring us something that's complete that we can all read in advance of the meeting and then we could vote on it. Would the next meeting be too long down the road, or, because we could call a special meeting if we had to.
We could do the next board meeting. And truth be told, we need to like pair up with Sean Kenyons, and what we really wanted from tonight was the confidence, yes, you're a co-applicant, because it does change what the cover letter looks like.
Yeah. Well, I think that you got a consensus of the board that we're all in support of,
To be a co-applicant.
yes.
Yes.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So we will proceed as if you will sign.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I think that's
With confidence.
Yeah, but I think the board would feel more comfortable if it was actually taking a vote, that it's a real document and that we could read it and
That's fair.
vote on it.
That makes sense.
Okay, so we'll put it on the June agenda, and I suggest you get it to us, hopefully a week before the
Yeah.
meeting, so that we have a chance to review it among ourselves and,
Perfect.
yeah. All right, well, good, so great project. Then our report. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Lot of work.
Thank you guys for being here every month. We just drop in and then call.
Drop in, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We appreciate it.
Once a month, you're twice a day.
Well, no, I've worked audio and this, like, no, it's fine.
All right.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, and because
Thank you.
I could like fix it,
Yeah.
but it seems
I
like.
feel badly about this.
I know, I was there, and I can probably figure out. I've already
Is there anything I could be paying?
But it's gonna likely require me to.
Oh, it's all
It's
related.
like, how do I get back to everybody?
I'll have to hear about it later.
Look into the notes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Rudy.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea.
When I figure it out. But I mean, I've experienced those kinds of,
Thanks, Georgia.
bye, meeting already in progress
Yeah.
issues, and they're just like, sometimes you just have to generate a new meeting.
I can pay it.
No,
Sorry.
Okay.
Back for a moment, when I'm saying, you know, yeah. For tree removal. All right.
I know, thank you.
Bye, you guys. That's being.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Next time.
Is that not your experience?
I don't,
So it sounds like Sean Cummings suggested that,
I don't know
they,
with tree
they could
removal.
apply and if it doesn't come up. Okay,
Yeah, I really don't know. I've never had just like only tree removal project
yeah,
like this.
I don't know.
I don't know, I'm going on the agenda. So item 6, overview of the appropriations limit and schedule and mandate reporting.
Yep. So there's a slide deck associated with this item, so I'm just gonna take us through it. So moving on to past the first slide here. So the appropriations limit, just to remind you guys what this is all about. Near the beginning of every fiscal year, which is again July 1, which is why we're having to talk about this right now. BCPUD needs to calculate our appropriations limit going into that year. And it's that time of year again. So in a nutshell, this process involves the following: using population and income data provided by the state and county, the district must calculate a limit on how many tax dollars we can appropriate going into that year. This is called the appropriations limit. Yep.
What tax dollars is this? Is this state or?
No, it's our own tax dollars that we collect.
Okay.
And so it's not our service charges and stuff like that. It's the specific, I can't remember what exactly it is. We get 1% of some collection of taxes.
Is it, what's on the property tax?
I think it's probably.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Marin County property taxes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That is coming back to us, and that is the specific taxes
thank
that
you.
it's related to.
My other thing.
Yes, and so you can see this calculation where we basically take the appropriations limit for the fiscal year 2023. And the population change data or population decrease, this is all based on census data. And then we look at the change in California per capita personal income for this area. And then we have from those numbers, we generate basically a normalizing factor, what they call an adjustment factor here of 1.03. So then you're effectively multiplying the previous year by the 1.03. And so this appropriations limit goes up by that much for this year.
So this is a mix of Bolinas figures, the population, and then the California per capita personal income has changed, is sort of a blend of Bolinas and statewide figures.
I think that the change I'll look into that more. My understanding is that the change in California per capita personal income is still regional. So we're taking it from that database, but it might be county or even, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll look into it, and I'm gonna bring this back, but it's basically, we don't have any flexibility. We literally go to the state and say, what are the, or a state database and say, what are the numbers we're using? We need to report what our methodology is. I don't even know why that is, given that my understanding is there's not a lot of flexibility there.
Right.
So if we move on to the next slide, we have reporting mandates associated with these appropriations limits. So you, the board, must vote on 2 resolutions related to the appropriations limit, and I will bring those forward in the next month. A resolution declaring that upcoming year's limit. So this is based on the calculation that I was just telling you. A resolution which cites the criteria, so the specific population and income data we used in our calculations. In addition, at least 15 days prior to these resolutions, we need to provide the public with a notice of determination of appropriations limit for the fiscal year 24-25 on June 3rd. This is just basically working back from that meeting. We will be posting this notice on our website, in the office, and on Nextdoor. And you will be approving the language of this notice determination this evening, and that's what appears on the next page. We don't have to do that right now. It will come up. If there's any kind of modifications you want to make to the language, I'd say we can look at it now. I doubt that you have any. I mean, it's very boilerplate. But just to let you know, this is, our legal mandate here, and this is what we'll be posting. So,
About putting it in the hearsay too.
Yeah, here's the-
okay,
I was gonna say
yes. So, and then if you just go forward one slide, just to spoiler alert, basically, we have more regulation associated with this appropriations limit. Basically, what happens if we go over the limit? So we don't generally go over the limit, and so it hasn't been a concern. However, we did a couple of years ago, and one of the ways that we did I show that? Just to go back, no, so I'll talk about that next time, but we'll bring it back because basically there's a whole calculation on how around determining how, if you went over the limit and effectively, your debt, like any debt that you're paying counts, like brings the limit, means that the appropriations are, I'm gonna talk about it next time.
That's it.
I prepared this whole thing and then I'm like, you know what, we don't need to vote on this now, we can vote on it in June. And there's still some questions around how we would do that going forward. So I'll bring that back for discussion, but for right now, all you have to do is effectively approve that language. So when we have that on later in the agenda, we can basically vote on it.
Something did catch my eye on that last slide about the district's potential ballot measure.
Yeah.
Is that something that we should talk about now, or is that also, you also gonna talk about that next month?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it next month because what happened was we basically thought that it was pretty simple. Turned out it was complicated. And when I was talking to Dan Miller we had several conversations with him at the election office and he's like, oh no, that ballot language doesn't meet criteria. Oh, that one doesn't. So we need to make sure that whatever we've never done this before. And that's part of the growing pains around it. Other districts do exactly what this ballot measure will suggest. And it may turn out that we don't have the ability to do it, in which case, you know, it won't come to you in June, but I'm hoping that we can. And we still, our ultimate deadline is June 28th. And so the meeting next month still falls within that. And obviously I'll, you know, make sure to get this to you guys ahead of time. But basically we'll revisit that issue and the ballot measure associated with the appropriations limit at that time.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so that brings us to,
Item 7. Possible modification to the regular board meetings, including the meeting location and time.
yeah. And so there's a slide deck associated with this, so we can basically go through that now. And there is also an appended like long version of the agenda, which is that colored version of the agenda, so we can refer to that if and when it comes up. I put this on for action because I was thinking you guys might want to actually modify things tonight, but as far as meeting time and all of that. But given that we only have one more meeting in June, I am going to suggest that we just basically talk about all of this tonight and you guys can stew over it and we'll bring it back in June. And then at that point, we can vote on, you know, changing the location, the timing, etc. for the rest of, you know, starting at the beginning of the year. That's what I recommend.
Oh, I see, because you think
Beginning of-
current changes should be done on a fiscal year calendar?
I mean, they don't necessarily have to be, but I think given that you're changing the location and time and people are used to it, it's nice to give people more of a heads up.
Yeah,
And I also feel like this, to me, I feel like I want this to be a really comprehensive look at how we do meetings. And so I just, it's just my experience that, you know, you guys might leave, like l'esprit d'escalier, you leave here and you're like, oh, you know what I really want to do is this. So if you get a month to like stew over how you want things to change, I think that we kind of introduce this topic this time. We then come back to it and make some decisions in June. That's what I would recommend.
And then it would be implemented starting
July.
January. Oh, July.
Yeah, July.
When you said I'd give people time, I was thinking.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, I just mean like basically this gives them a heads up.
Okay.
We're thinking about changing the meeting time, June, and we can obviously publicize all of, you know,
Yeah.
So are we
modifications.
having a discussion now about?
Yeah, I think we'll have, yeah, so it's basically, I'm just saying, I put it on for action in case you wanted to actually modify your time and location.
Yes.
But I would recommend that we don't do that right now. We just literally go through this slide deck and discuss some of the modifications to our meetings.
Okay,
Are we looking at? There's a couple of.
Yeah,
other
7A,
general-
7B.
Yeah, what are we looking at?
George's.
The slide deck, sorry.
Okay, looking at the slide deck, okay.
okay,
That's what I
so
put up.
let's go to the page that says, yeah,
Time, location, and BCPUD regular meeting. Can we go there?
Yeah.
Nope,
no,
sorry, one back. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't mean that we don't discuss this. I just meant let's not make decisions on
Right.
it. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that it is my personal opinion, maybe this is selfish, that we start our meetings really late. And so if you look, that's what I kind of looked at all of the other meetings that are going on in town, and we start our meetings the latest. And yet our meetings are quite long. And so I don't think that I would recommend that if it's amenable to people's schedules, that we start earlier. That's one thing. And of course, this is your decision. But that's just something to point out. I'd also point out that Wednesday is Wednesday soccer. There's 2 members of our board that play soccer every Wednesday. And especially if we start our meetings earlier, I don't think that there's any like things set in stone where we have to have it on Wednesday. So I'd recommend that we consider another day that is community oriented. There would be tons of soccer folks here tonight, except for that they're so exhausted from.
Yeah,
So does that be
We're a
like
big
Tuesday
draw.
night or Monday night?
I mean, I don't,
mean,
yeah, I think.
Thursday night feels like the new Friday. So,
Yeah, non-edge meeting.
well, you know what, let's have a little bit of discussion on the 3 items that you've got here, okay? The
Yeah.
time, the day, and the location,
I mean,
is it worth it?
yeah, go ahead. No, sorry.
Yeah. I think it's worth having a discussion on it. I mean, it's before us on the table. We don't have to vote unless we are all in agreement on something, but, so let me start because I've been on this board forever.
hoping you would.
I
So,
think we talked about this briefly and
We have, it was brought up,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
What are your thoughts?
well, the thought is that people used to say, there has to be time for, back in the day, and a lot of people worked till 5 o'clock. And then they had to go home, rest, clean up, have dinner, and then go to the meeting, and it felt like 7 o'clock was rushing it too much. But I don't know that it is, and people's work days have changed, but historically, that was always the argument for waiting until 7:30. But as you point out, everybody else meets at an earlier time. And I would not be opposed to starting at an earlier time myself. So let me just see if we have a consensus to do that. Then I'll start with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely an advocate of starting earlier. Well, I see both sides. I like the historical nature of starting at 7:30 and sort of keeping that tradition, and the meetings go late sometimes, and that's actually kind of part of what makes them interesting, but it also makes them difficult. I'd say I'd prefer an earlier start time.
Okay.
I'd also be in favor of even mixing it up, and what if we did a meeting 1 month on a weekend, you know, let's have coffee on a Sunday morning meeting, and maybe we get more of the town, we get a different cross section of the town, because I imagine there's some people that can't come to any weeknight meetings. So, you know, no matter what time they are, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But it could be just a chance to bring in a different slice of the town. If we, you know, I'm not saying to do it on every weekend, but 1 month, August, we could have it, you know, at the firehouse one Sunday morning with, you know, coffee and donuts.
All right, well,
That's it.
let me just focus on the time right now before we talk about alternate days. But so are you talking about a half hour sooner or an hour sooner?
I mean, I would do it as early as 6:30.
Yeah. Okay, what do you say, Kristen?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I appreciate the historic nature of like, well, people wanna go home, see their kids, you know, get food and then come up here, but. I was remarking as we started at 6:30 tonight, you know, how much I actually enjoy coming a bit earlier. I'm a super like 4:35 in the morning, so you can imagine, I usually go to bed at 9:30 and that's when I start to kind of
Yeah.
wax out. So
So
that's
you.
my personal.
Well, that's what we're
So,
doing.
yeah, which I appreciate showing up earlier this evening, so I would say 6:30.
Okay, what do you say?
As someone who eats all my meals very late, I would be interested in figuring out how I would eat my dinner, because I would otherwise be not functional if I didn't eat before this meeting. I could probably, that being said, I could probably start as early as 5 on a. Ideally, it would be a Tuesday, I think. But I'm really flexible, so I don't mind the later meetings, but it would be nice, especially in the winter, I think, to have earlier meetings.
Yeah.
And
I've heard 2 people say 6:30, somewhere in there.
yeah,
An hour earlier, let's say.
But if
yeah,
the school board has their meetings on Tuesdays, well, I guess.
Well, that's just
we-
always-
They have a second
it'd be a different week.
Yeah, different,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you like the
I
6:30?
could do 6 or 6:30, I could. I also think that there are ways that we could shorten our meetings just based on the content. That I think George is actually starting to hash out, like with, like a lot of the like managers report stuff, if you just give us that slide deck. I read it and like,
Yeah.
I get it, unless I have a question, I don't need to hear it again. And I don't know if that's for the public. I also wanna say like,
Yeah.
2 things, I think that our community participation is really low. Unless there's like a big item, and I think if we had an agenda item like the Mesa Park water, like we had in last May. We could move the meeting time to a time that more people from town could attend. It doesn't have to be, like Kevin said, just like set in stone time. It could be like, well, for this huge turnout meeting, we're gonna have it at 7 because then you can feed your kids and tuck them in the bed or whatever. So I think there's some flexibility there, but I'd be happy to start earlier.
Okay, what do you say, Grace?
I love starting at 7:30 because I can eat dinner. I can be flexible. The eating part's tough for me because, I'm working usually right up until I come to this meeting. But
Well,
I
they
can-
do feed us at the school board meetings, so,
Do they really?
I mean,
But
it's
they
different
feed
because
you
they have
ahead
the
of time, right?
cafeteria food, what?
do you, not during, are you eating?
Well, we
during-
always have a closed door session
Right.
prior to. So, I don't think there's a value in necessarily, we don't have enough closed door session stuff to.
Yeah.
But it could be like we arrive at 6 and we have food and then at 6:30 we get started or something. I mean, it's just something to consider. I think it's a nice. Gesture. I can look into, can we legally fund a food for the board members or whatever? I mean, I just think it's.
I mean, it's once a month.
It's
Yeah,
once a
I can
month.
Just
I can change my dinner plan once a month.
one day of the month, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm in agreement. I think 6:30 sounds fine to me.
I mean, I think just to throw a couple of my 2 cents in there, I do think that our demographic is older now too. And a lot of older people, like I know my parents, they eat like dinner at 5. And, they're in bed really early. And so, I think around this participation thing, I think that, we might get more participation if it weren't this late.
Uh-huh. Well, it definitely would be easier on the board because then we'd get home sooner too, and I know that it is hard, the meal thing can get annoying, but
I'll figure it out.
you have to figure it. All right, well, I think we have an agreement on the board that, yeah, let's make 6:30 our starting time.
Why don't we try it in July and see how it goes, and maybe we'll get a lot of feedback from people, either they like it or they don't. We'll see how it works for us.
Okay.
What do you guys think about trying it in did I say July? I meant
You
June.
mentioned.
Okay.
Okay, so following this subject, because some of this has to do with the fact that the people in town have become accustomed to the fact
Mhm.
that the BPUD meetings always are on the 3rd Wednesday at 7:30, so we'll have to sort of educate the community and condition, I don't have a problem with that, it's just that. We have to do that, so that's what takes me to the next subject you raised, which is maybe we can change it, go ahead.
But real quick, we have changed one-off meetings, like, we did it one time, we changed from our regular, monthly spot to 1 week ahead or after, I forget why, because of some scheduling conflict. and
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we do it.
On holiday.
We do
Yeah,
do it.
we do it occasionally, and,
Yeah.
And
people deal with it,
location.
and we notify people in the
Yeah.
location,
And
so,
yeah, so then let's go to that day, the idea that does it have to be a Wednesday, and if not, what would be the day? I'm inclined to say it should be the same day of the week, as opposed to moving it from, every once in a while, Saturday or something like that, just because of the conditioning.
Yeah,
But I have no problem with changing the day on Wednesday. Admittedly, I'm on the soccer player, so that's my personal thing, but we've been living with that for a long time and, you
Yeah.
know, we just skip soccer or just leave early, so that's not it, but
I mean, I'm open to switching days if it were a Tuesday, Wednesday would be my
yeah, I agree.
preference. I actually do like Wednesdays because it's right midweek, gives me an opportunity to be here, but I would also wanna honor that people have other, you know, soccer commitments and so.
or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the time of day is more important than
Yeah,
the day of the
okay,
week.
so let me ask you again then, so what do you think, Kevin, about changing the day or leaving it on a Wednesday? Do you have any preference?
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's Microsoft talking to me.
I mean, I think if we're gonna change the time, we should consider changing the day if it makes, you know, especially the soccer players, it makes your life easier. I'd go for the maybe third Tuesday. Like I would do Tuesday or Wednesday as well. I feel like Monday, you're getting into people's 3-day weekend plans and their holidays on Mondays and Thursday and Friday feel too close to the weekend, so I feel like Tuesday or Wednesdays.
Good, good point.
I would do either of those.
What do you say?
I would say Tuesday or Wednesday would be best for me.
Or so, preference, we leave it on Wednesday or change it to a Tuesday?
Third Tuesday.
Yeah, my client schedule is flexible. I just, as long as I know when they're gonna be, I will
Exactly.
block that day out. So, Tuesday is fine. I don't mind. I think
Yeah.
you should place.
So
That's good for.
so it sounds like we have a consensus that maybe it's the third
6:30,
Tuesday as
third
opposed to the
Tuesday.
third
Okay, and you
Wednesday.
guys wanna try it out in June, and we can start publicizing that June's meeting will be on the Tuesday starting at 6:30.
Yeah,
So what does that do? Sorry, third Tuesday?
Yeah,
third Tuesday of the month. at
Okay, it's just gonna
6:30.
be one earlier day than it is right
Yeah.
now.
mhm.
Yeah, it's
Well,
that's good.
One day before and 1 hour
June
earlier.
June
Yeah.
18th.
Yeah, well, let's go to the last thing that you talked about, which is a location. Meeting in someplace other than this room, right?
Hold on,
Yep.
real quick, I had BSUSD board meeting on that day, June 18th, is that not true?
That's not true.
The board
okay.
meeting. On June,
That's, it's.
Oh, you know,
It'll be
it's-
Second Tuesday.
yeah, no, it's because we have 2 June meetings.
Okay, so it's like a special meeting.
It's a
maybe?
special meeting.
Was that gonna be hard for you to do? You can't be in both, cause at what time is that? That one's at 5. Will that be over by then? Would you wanna do it back to
Likely
back?
not, but it's fine. I mean, I'm sure we have a quorum.
Well, we don't have to do the next Tuesday in June if that doesn't work for you,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, we
you
can
gotta
start
be
in
there.
July.
So.
Yeah, we could try in July instead, we could try the time, leave it as it is.
Yeah, let's try the time. For the
Okay,
next
so-
meeting.
I think we should make the change
Yeah.
one time, like we decide what the new thing is gonna be,
Sure.
we should not.
From now on, it's third Tuesday at 6:30.
Let's start in July then.
Yeah, we can start going
Starting
into
July.
That'll
Okay.
give plenty of time for publicity
We're
and
gonna
blah, blah.
keep our June 19th
Mhm.
Wednesday meeting.
Yeah.
At 7:30, so keep the same time you're saying. You don't wanna peel the Band-Aid off slowly.
I think peeling the Band-Aid off slowly is confusing to people.
Yeah.
I think it's better to just say, you know, have the big headline, change of meeting, from now on, it will be blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
instead of.
Yeah.
That is
I-
so true, Grace. We're gonna completely confuse people because they'll say like, I thought it was the Tuesday.
yeah.
Oh, no, that was just a stepping
Right, yeah,
stone.
it's, yeah.
we'll hear it, but
Yeah,
that's
but
okay.
if we're consistent, I think consistency is important.
Yeah,
I like the idea of the coffee once
Yeah.
a year is lovely, but because we have coffee cito and things at school, but I think that. Let's do one thing at a time.
okay,
People are flexible, they can adapt.
Yeah.
I think we're making too big a deal of it, like, if we wanna have a meeting next month at 6:30, we could do that, and people will adapt and they're gonna be okay with it, like, that's.
I mean, and
That's okay.
in reality, we're not really accommodating anybody because nobody's here.
yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah.
Think
what,
much worse than that.
what I think is our primary issue right now is participation in our meetings.
That, because I think that whenever anybody's upset about anything, they make sure to come to the meetings.
Yeah.
If they
I'm-
think everything's
I'm-
moving along. And we're taking good care of the water supply, there is no reason for them to come to the meetings. Like, why would they?
Huh, to argue about eucalyptus versus
Well,
butterflies.
They will see them,
They will.
But not if it's relevant.
but not, I mean, I think that the nature of this board is that you get a lot of community participation when there's a big community issue.
That's right.
And the rest of the time, it's not like they're just gonna come for kicks.
Not regular beat, but no, you have to have a personal interest in what's going on.
I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
perfectly legit.
All right, so let me address this last one then, which is firehouse question mark, school library question mark. Tell us what your thinking is about changing this.
I would almost recommend that we try them both out. I mean, I know that kind of gets to a difficulty, but there's
Oh.
such.
I do.
No, I mean, because I can see value in doing both, and I think it will be a personal preference. They're very different environments in a way. And unless you've kind of gone through the process of what it's like there, I mean, that's kind of my recommendation. I would suggest that probably the firehouse is where we end up, just because there's precedent for all of these other meetings to occur there. But I think it's really nicely set up at the school in terms of like anyway, in terms of me being able to present to you guys and having the screen right there and the audience there. The only thing I worry about at the firehouse is that basically the way that you've primarily, as my understanding, set up there is you guys against the sort of what I would consider the far wall from when you come in. And then the audience is here, and then that means you guys are like craning your neck towards anything that I would be presenting.
I don't
So-
like the firehouse because I think the room's too big. I mean, we usually don't have a big group, occasionally so, but it seems to me that the library could accommodate
It's definitely a warmer
any
space.
normal sized group that we would possibly have. And
School library.
the school library, yeah, the school library. Yeah, no, the school library is a nice meeting spot, I think. I mean, I've got a vested interest.
Yeah,
I'm there every day, but, I think that this already feels lonesome, and if you put this in the firehouse, it's gonna be like, wow, you know. It just doesn't, it feels weird to me to
Yeah,
have that big meeting space for what's normally a pretty small meeting.
Well, why don't because I haven't contacted, I know that previously when there was this sort of imminent urgency to get out of here, Jennifer had spoken to George Krakauer or Isaac, and they said that it was available for us. I haven't spoken to the school. I'm assuming that likely it would be similarly available. But why don't we, I mean, again, I would say we're doing this all in one fell swoop in July and moving to the new location, the Tuesday 6:30 start. And I can bring it back to you in terms of, a recommendation for where I would suggest we have our new location.
The only tricky thing with the school library is gonna be if the school board has special meetings. Cause they'll be on Tuesdays probably.
that's where the meetings are, in the library.
We
Tuesday.
don't really. I mean, we very regularly.
Do you?
No, it's June we generally have 2 meetings in June as we close out the year.
Well, so what should we decide right now?
And if we have a standing meeting, once a month at the school library, would the school board, try to accommodate that as best they could and not try to schedule a special meeting at that time?
I
right?
would think so. I mean,
Yeah.
again, we have very few
Yeah.
special meetings. It's just that one June thing.
You didn't think about the community center as an option?
The community center, I didn't think about it. It's just because I was thinking about the other boards. I think I was coming at from that perspective.
It's too big.
It's too big.
Yeah.
It is big,
It's too
Yeah,
open.
It's
and
too big
accessible.
and echoey and.
yeah,
I don't know, I guess, I mean, I haven't attended the school, but I'm hearing good things, what you're saying about the facilities, but I don't know why, I just feel like BPUD should be a separate entity from the school district and having meetings there. But that's my,
Yeah, I can see that. I think the firehouse is good for that reason. I've had it set up several ways. When I was on BCLT, we kind of sat in different configurations and we didn't have to crane our necks. It's kind of a neutral site.
all right, when we do this, I think we've all in agreement then that we're gonna do 6:30. And then we're gonna try third Tuesdays rather than Wednesdays,
okay,
and defer our decision on the location. We'll think about it and you can.
Bring it back to in June.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So are we gonna try to do it in June or wait till July?
No, we'll wait till July. We'll
Okay.
bring back the decision around location in June.
Okay, all right.
So that then you guys, I mean, I can look into it more and think about arranging. I mean, again, I was in agreement with you guys. I felt like the natural place for us to do it was at the firehouse. But I do think that the school is a nicer, kind of cozier space.
Okay,
Mhm.
so come back, yeah, so we'll continue this discussion in June, but it sounds like we've made a decision for day and
Okay.
time. Okay,
What about the Zoom component? Are we keeping the Zoom component for our meetings? How does the board and the GM feel about? I sort of feel like we have to. At
I
this
think
point.
we should. I got a lot of feedback from people when COVID hit that they were really happy to be able to still attend the meetings on Zoom and they kept going, but as we've all seen, it's dropped off considerably, you know. Again,
Like did tonight.
well, yeah, of course,
But it has anyway.
but it has, yeah, except for the time when there's an item and then, you know, the screen is full of all these people, so I think. Unless it's really inconvenient or an extra.
No, I would say that regardless, we will record the meeting. Even if it wasn't like we weren't letting in public, because, I mean, we'll talk about this hopefully in a second here. But around the minutes and stuff and wanting to streamline how we do minutes. I really want to push us towards, we have an archive of audio and video. And it's not a good use of district time to have exhaustive minutes that take a lot of time. And that to use stamps and links to individual, you know, that the minutes direct you towards these existing documents. So regardless of whether we actually have Zoom as a means to like bring people into our meeting, I would recommend that we're still recording the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we absolutely need to record the meetings, like listening to recordings was pretty crucial at several meetings, like for way in the past.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
How the discussion went, I think that's.
yeah, they've been
extremely
lifesavers,
important, Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're asking is the interactive component
Mhm.
on this meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should, because again, with, you know. A lot of the people who like to come to the meetings are older, and it's cold here, and it's kind
My
of cold at
feet
the
are
firehouse
crazy
too.
right now.
And it's, if they can be more comfortable sitting at home and still be interested in, and
yeah,
involved, I think that's a nice thing to offer to people, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and then we have Bruce and Sherry often are presenting
Presenting,
late
yeah.
in
Mhm.
the evening, and so they're doing
yeah,
online.
I think it's.
okay. So let's keep going with the stuff that you've given
Okay.
us.
So other general considerations regarding BCPUD's regular meeting, this is basically just me throwing some stuff out here, but how does the board feel about the level of community participation? And we already talked about that, I would
Yeah.
suggest. So how does the board feel about the length of our meetings? We've kind of already addressed this.
Yeah,
I would suggest that there's opportunity to streamline our meetings. I mean, I say that, but then, you know, once I start to prepare stuff, but along the lines, I think the manager's report is really pretty long, and I would suggest that it's not necessarily needed. But you know, again, I think one of the things that's confusing about this whole, you know, public meeting of the board, it's like your meeting, but it's also an opportunity to express to the public what's happening at the district.
Yeah.
And so while I appreciate that, like, you know, okay, I can give you guys a slide deck and you can look it over and it could be 5 minutes of your time, and if you have questions, but it's not really doing our due diligence in terms of you having a meeting in the context of, you know, a public facing meeting. So
So
that's,
just remind me, because from the public, are they also being able to access?
yeah, they have all of the same materials. They have everything on the agenda that you have
Okay,
is available to the public.
I've never seen an audience member with the material before. At any meeting.
No.
I feel like they're just like, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
I think it would be so good to have it displayed somewhere.
Yes, yeah, and that's my hope is to have all of the items displayable.
Yeah.
You know, even if they're documents, like, I mean, for me, I present slide decks because that's just the way I am accustomed to presenting.
Yeah.
But I think it's appropriate for any document that we're discussing to be present
yeah,
Yeah,
in a visual form.
I agree.
I would suggest, I mean, and this is not something that we do here, and I don't think we necessarily have to do it, but at the school, all of the documents are available as printed materials for the public to like engage with when they come in. And so I don't think that that's necessarily what we want to do. We have so much material and everything, but I think that, you know, to just have it be presented in the form of, you know, a screen really helps.
I think so too.
Okay,
And on Zoom.
yeah,
And screen sharing on Zoom.
So then you, is that what we're talking about now, which is the last one, suggestions about the meeting format, supplemental materials, etc.?
yeah. I mean, again, I think that what I would suggest, this is kind of why I'm like, again, in the interest of not having a 5-hour meeting. You know, maybe you guys can think about these things more and just really consider what it is that you might want to modify going forward, and we'll kind of implement these July, you know, in our July meeting after July 1. But I think that there's opportunities to think about streamlining some of this.
Yep. Okay, do we need to discuss this, the new format? You want to talk about?
Yeah, I do want to talk about it for a second, if you guys don't mind, but basically, I kind of did a version of that tonight. But I pared it down a lot, and I just think that I would like to just point out the kind of format that I'm seeing here, which is basically a meeting opening, a water supply, and items to be highlighted. So that's not something that I instituted this time because I thought it was like a little much, because I wanted to talk about it before I did it. And then recommendations and approval on for action, and then our meeting close. So what I would like to do, and this might go along with kind of paring down the manager's report. I think that the water supply memo, while it feels a little rote, especially when we're not in drought, it's important, just as like we are a water district.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to do is extract it from the manager's report, and I'd like to see it as a really public facing, even if there is no public, but a public facing report. And because in part, obviously, if we don't do, and we will inevitably go back into drought, it becomes the major focal point of the meeting.
Yeah.
And you're starting off with that, and you're basically saying, hey, and then along the lines of what I was saying with the water report tonight, I think as a public facing document where the public really has some control over it, it's around their consumption. And so I would say that our, you know, the sort of history of where the water supply memo came from was really obviously during the drought and wanting to model creek flows. And that was my understanding of how it came to fruition. But I think that really what I see as a sort of a missing piece there is just like highlighting more of sort of the data consumption. And what I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't have to take forever. What I would envision is basically, hey, April over the last 5 years, for instance, is what I could have done tonight. So we can really sort of see a broader view of what does consumption look like when we're, you know, comparing apples to apples. And then maybe water consumption over the entire year, like two simple graphs that just give you a, you know, per hookup use, average water use. Anyway, so that's one thing.
Well, in the past, we've had the graph that shows which section was billed that particular time period, that particular 3-month period, and had that was compared with historical data. So you can see, oh, right, downtown, 4th of July, you know, the usage spikes, but that's big. I thought that was an interesting, that graph was always interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, it does. I was kind of glossing over that, right? This comes back to our whole quarterly reads and the fact that we are seeing different snippets. But again, that's why actually talking about March's consumption relative to April's isn't that meaningful in some ways, right? You're not comparing apples and apples.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the whole town, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't have the whole town, so really you're comparing a different sample
yeah,
from one point to the other.
Right, it's more useful to see the historical data for that particular sample.
Yeah, so I think that's why, but we do April is, you know, always the same area.
Right.
So April,
And-
to April, it's the same, but
Yeah,
April to March.
And
is
so
the-
April over the last 5 years is maybe, meaningful, and then March, and I can point out, okay, this is, the area that was sampled for that. Again, I think, maybe you stew over this, we come back in June and you guys have some ideas about what data you actually want presented in the supply memo. You can bring that forward and I'll have my own ideas and actually be presenting them in June, and then you can, add your 2 cents, like, oh yeah, I really like this, or no, let's modify this.
Okay,
This is a,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna go a little off topic, but kind of just.
Okay, don't go, just yet then. I'd like to see the comparisons or the sort of extrapolations from the data.
Yeah.
Like you're just mentioning, April to April, going back 5 years, I find that really helpful, and I kind of zero in on that. Like when, only 35% of the years in our historical record that had more rain by the end of April. I find those sorts of nuggets really useful because it just gives context and color to the data. It makes it more than data. It sort of like tells the story of the water supply and the water consumption. Like that to me is really helpful.
Mhm.
I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, the modeling that happens right now is not very useful because it's not actually, it's been so long that that the dam was below level, that we could actually extrapolate real data to our model data to actually test the model. And so we're kind of like going through the motions, and I'm like still calculating that data. But at some level, I'm like, this isn't very useful right now.
Yeah.
And it becomes obviously much more useful when we're, edging towards drought. And so like, and again, that's the piece where I'm like, I would rather be presenting consumption data than this model that I don't have a lot of faith in
Yeah.
at this moment in time, right?
yeah,
And I think.
And it
the
doesn't
graphs
have a
and
lot of-
models are hard to read unless you.
Yeah, they're not,
Into
my feeling about some of the graphs, there is they were really intended for a very specific
Yeah,
thing.
right.
That
And
it's,
stuck
it's
in.
not, and it's not really
Yeah.
intended for the lay audience.
Mhm.
They're not very comprehensible,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
yeah.
And so,
No, the charts that would show, 10 years ago, and then 9, 8, 7, and then the Mesa downtown, whatever
Right,
those
yeah,
breakdown,
yeah.
those are always interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to your point, I mean, I think extrapolating, like, this is what you're seeing, or this is the relevance and why you're seeing this graph. That's where I find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most useful, yeah.
When you have those anecdotes.
In the manager's report, something that I do like is I was just thinking about the dam. I was thinking, oh, there's that big project to fix the gate of the dam. Like,
Right.
what's happening with that? I don't want a long explanation, but it's like, nothing's happened with that. It's on the back burner. But we haven't lost sight of it. Sometimes we have these intensive discussions about things and then they sort of disappear. Probably because more important things are happening. If there's leaks, I'd like to know, leak here, boom, that's all I wanna know, but I'm interested in that.
Yeah, so one of the things is around the general manager's report is it becomes really nebulous, right? It's like, well, what am I gonna include in there? It becomes extremely discretionary. And then I'm like, well, what do you guys want to hear? And it becomes somewhat arbitrary as to what I include and what I don't include. So I like having more structure to our agenda and being like, if the radial gate is of like real importance and I feel like I want to bring it forward, and I want to either bring it forward in a special report that can be really short, or bring it on where it's obvious that I'm giving a special report and I need some action of the board. Like that's the way I'm envisioning these
Yeah.
things, is to not kind of like hide them in the manager's report, and so, I think there's still potentially like the way I did it tonight, but maybe it's like, okay, we have this section, but I just use a lot more discretion about what has risen to that level of wanting to report out. And yeah, again, it's just like, I like to tell you that I had a meeting with Stinson, but is it necessary? Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I think that speaks to kind of the West Marin relationships. I do actually like hearing that.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think the enthusiasm I felt in you saying, and we're gonna be meeting again, right? That
Mhm.
kind of building
Well, why don't we, I mean, I guess I can continue with the general manager's report going forward. And if it feels like the meetings are still too long, we can start to consider, paring it down.
Yeah.
Cause it does feel like an opportunity. It's not.
Well, I do like the information in the document that was you and Bruce who said, because it's easy to read and it's a quick read, but it also allows you to go deeper where you want to. And so I'm fine with being able to read the document and you being able to present more executive summary. And if we have questions that we notice in the document, we could.
It's
bring
that
them out.
public facing part is tricky though. It's
But
like,
they
how
have
do you make
access
sure
to the
that
document too, right?
if they're,
Well, I mean, I don't want to deprive you
Yeah.
from speaking, but you could be
Mhm.
speaking to a high level and reference the
yeah, I hear what you're
document.
saying,
And
but
people-
yeah, it's the balance, it's tricky. But
We could try it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's keep it as it is, but what I'm recommending is basically extracting, I mean, I hope this was clear, extracting the water supply memo out of the general manager's report, have it sit as its own little thing at the very top so that it doesn't get just like sort of jumbled in with the general manager's report, so that if like lo and behold, we're in drought conditions again, that item becomes really highlighted and we have opportunity to talk about it and it becomes central. And why I'm calling this water supply and items to be highlighted. I don't see us doing this a lot here, but in the school board meeting, it is customary. What we do is if people are there to present as guests, we almost invariably bring them to the top of the meeting.
Yeah,
And so
Make them feel
I would feel like it's more polite to do that. I feel like also, so what I would suggest is I like a lot of structure to our meetings, so I don't want to just like, we'll add things up there and I'm deciding, oh, this is important, I'm gonna move it up there. I'd like to have it be where it should sit. So like the BET meeting tonight sits in the, whatever it was, special reports on for action. And it's clear that, that's where it should sit, but we have a quick look at the agenda at the beginning. And we say, oh, are these people in the audience ready to present? And we move them to the top, or if we say have something really contentious going on and there's a million people there to talk about it, we, bring it to the top. We basically have the opportunity to highlight specific items. And again, it's just, you generally, we do it in the form of, I'm like suggesting that we move item 13 to the top because the presenters are here, and then you effectively, all agree or don't.
I would
Okay with
agree with that.
Yeah, I feel like with our volunteer committees, like we've had times when Sherry and Bruce are waiting till 10:30 to talk about parking and they're volunteering their time for 3 years, like. They should be right up front, I agree, because they're donating their time on our behalf, and they're sitting through all this other conversation. So I kind of like how you prioritize that.
I'm thinking about items for action. A lot of the action items are people who are contesting their water bill because of leaks and things like that.
We're applying for an LWUP, right? Like people who are
Yes,
coming before us for a decision.
and so we should put them high on the,
Yeah,
those are action items and let them say their piece and we take our vote and they go home.
Or they endure an
I was thinking
meeting.
you were gonna say
You won't have a leak anymore after listening to this.
A lot of people have said that though, like, it's interesting because you do get people in for LWUPs or for leaks who've never been to a meeting, will never go to one again, and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah,
that you were doing this much.
right.
Yeah,
They say that.
I agree that it's courteous to do that, and on the other hand, I think there's been some historic benefit and for contentious items too, it's like everybody gets kind of bored and tedious. It's like, okay, it calms things down a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, good long
Shake the sting.
extra long general
You're
manager's
not
report
as
tonight.
important as you
But I would
There's
agree
other
with
stuff
Andrew
there.
that, you know, people like Bruce and Sherry. who
Yes.
really-
Yeah, I mean, I would totally see this as discretionary. I would say that basically the way that you start the meeting is looking at the agenda.
Mhm.
And you have effectively, I don't know if you guys are on this, but it's basically where I'm expanding to this part. And so, you essentially, what the agenda allows for is it just has a little empty space for items to effectively move up into that. And it's just like as a reminder to like, oh yeah, Sherry's on already. Let's move her forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so that moves
Add
on
one
to,
other thing,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, it was just while we're talking about like items, and I don't know if this would be appropriate to add to your meeting discussions, but I have to say that our infrastructure, that's something I find really fascinating about what are the projects that we're doing or that we should be forecasting to do, or that our community should be aware. These are the things that we're thinking about. So if there was somewhere besides water, sewer, that we could be looking at our infrastructure. I would go for that.
Yeah.
you mean like as far as capital?
As far as making that part of the presentation,
Yeah, I mean, it might be on an as needed basis, but
Yeah, I
there's
think
a
the
part of
public
me
would like
that's
to know
kind of
too.
hungry to hear about our infrastructure.
yeah, and I think the public should hear too, and that's,
Mhm.
that's their money that we're spending, and I think they'd like to know that we're doing these
Right.
bigger projects also.
Well, and it's money that we know is going to be needed, and, part of what we had to discuss and conflicted in our budget is like, well, we really need that money, but we don't wanna, put that onto our taxpayers as such a huge increase, so.
Well, I would suggest, again, I'm like maybe a little OCD about this, but I'd still like a lot of structure around our actual agenda. One of the ways I could see doing that, because it's not something that we're doing a ton of, there's literally not that much because we don't have the funding to do it. But what I would recommend is you could imagine something like we have special reports not on for action that are capital improvement projects that quarterly I report on. And it doesn't have to be things that we're doing, but it just keeps us more, it sits as a placeholder where it's like
Yeah.
January, we have a special reports on capital improvement projects. And we basically, list those out. It could be things like, hey, we really want to address the water quality quality in the reservoirs. To me, it's not infrastructure, it's basically infrastructure. And, the radial gate, like we bring all of them up and talk about them on a high level. To just be like, these are the things we're trying to attend to. And then essentially, quarterly, we can bring that same report back and have we made any progress? Like, it might just be like, my experience is that stuff's still sitting around, we still need to do it. But then when we're actually engaging in a project, let's say it is the radial gate and it's moved forward, well, that's a special report on the radial gate. Maybe it's on for action because I'm bringing something forward to you, or like an engineering report or whatever. And so it's, I like the idea of like having placeholders, again, from a agenda preparation perspective. Having placeholders and structure to it just makes it way easier than it like having to reinvent the agenda every month.
Okay.
So that brings me to study and information, no action. Again, what I see there are basically things like the manager's update, the special reports, potential for committee updates. Again, I really want to, because Kevin, gave me some insight as to the anxiety he feels when he's like, oh my God, there's all this stuff and it's being delivered last minute. And it makes me stressed out to have to read through this. And I think that's you're acting as a responsible board member. I also want to feel like, in part to you, there's a lot of work to be done. And my objective is to get everything done on Friday, but realistically, weeks will get crazy leading into a meeting. I can already see that. And, can I do that? And so I just really want to prioritize when things are on for action at that meeting. It's like, make sure that stuff is on for Friday, by Friday, excluding, I would say, the minutes, that's on for your approval, but minutes are, at least right now, they take a lot of time and we're, it's more like a stamp of approval kind of thing.
Yeah.
Things where you're really having to do your due diligence and acting on something. It's like, make sure that that's really clear, that that's on for action and that will be prioritized. And you do not have to feel as sort of responsible in terms of like things that I'm presenting in the manager's report. I'm never gonna be presenting something there where I'm like, oh, and this will be on for action later. You need to address the Zola. If it is, it will come out of my manager's report and it will move into action later. And so I just don't want you guys to feel like that sense of responsibility, like I need to understand the manager's report back and forth so I can ask questions on it. It's really that portion of the agenda I see much more as like a presentation to you guys as, and it's almost like, it's fine if that's the first time you're hearing it. There's nothing for you to, do related to that.
Yeah, I really
It's
appreciate
also
that.
one thing to think about as you move in meetings from Wednesday to Tuesday. Just personally, because I do use
One bigger
Wednesday.
One for your day,
Yeah.
For you to get us information and,
Yeah, I mean, I'll just move it all up though. It's not that big
Yeah.
a deal.
I really appreciate the way that you've identified these sections, I like having to know, I like knowing if there's action needed. I think that's really helpful because often in the past, we get these, tranches of documents and without any context. So I mean, I don't know, am I supposed to read this with a fine tooth
That's a
comb?
question.
I don't know, like, are we gonna? And then sometimes we would just barely glaze over in the meetings, I'm like, well, that was useless, that was pointless, why did I just read that 30-page document? So I really appreciate having more context for all the information that comes our way.
Yeah, yeah. Or at least some, you can summarize, sometimes, not to be critical, Jennifer, but sometimes she'll give us a lot of detail that, and the conclusion is, and so we're gonna order a new one and I'll tell you when it arrives. And I thought, well, you should have just told us that 5 minutes ago or something. In other words, just summarize a repair or replacement or those kinds of maintenance and functional things without giving us all the detail.
Well, I guess it's stating the ask up front of why this is being presented to the board and
Yeah,
what we're gonna
yeah.
ask you.
Yeah, well, it's following up on what Kevin was
Yeah.
saying is what am I getting?
Why am I reading this? What is,
Exactly.
what do I need to know here? Do I need, yeah.
Yeah, and
How
can
much
you
do I need to give them?
yeah, can you just tell it to me in a couple sentences and then I'll just keep going?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's keep going through our
Okay,
binder.
yeah, and then we have recommendations and approvals on for action. This is basically pretty self-explanatory. But I just wanted to point out, I just want to make more clear, like, I feel like there's categories of approvals that you guys have. So there's like work orders, service contract approvals, there are permit approvals, there's employment approvals. And so I want to kind of deal with a structure there where I can just like fit things in. Okay, if it's an LWAP, then it's a permit approval. If it's, a right-of-way permit, then it's permit approval. If it's a hiring that I'm looking for you guys to approve, then it's under our employment approvals, etc. And so that's kind of how I want to manage that. I don't know if you guys have any.
No, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and I mean,
Great.
like, this is my own structure. If you guys, how I deal with it kind of behind the scenes in terms of having it colored, if you guys want colored versions of our agendas, I can also post that and you'll see, like,
Is that Jack's
And
kind
make the big colors that colorblind people can see. I
Yeah.
mean, seriously,
yeah.
Jack really is.
You guys are gonna nail me on this sometime.
there's lots of people who are colorblind.
Yeah.
Just a,
Having
these
someone
work for
with
me.
no action and on for action.
Yeah, I think as long as you have a description of what the colors mean, then, if somebody's colorblind, they'll still get it, they'll be able to read it.
Yeah,
But you probably don't need to use red and green.
I don't know, I don't actually know that much about colorblind.
well, I've lived with it all my life and I can tell you, you just figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people give you color coded stuff and you just kind of shrug, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think there are colorblind palettes. I had people in my lab that were colorblind and we had to like accommodate them.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
for action items, are we following the traditional thing, like it's on for information 1 month and for action the next month? Or, I mean, I've always thought that was a requirement, but maybe not.
No, I've never experienced that for the board.
You mean things that we're gonna take action on and we need to have seen a month sooner?
That's
what I mean?
every board
Sometimes
that
it's
I've
full
ever
district,
been on has
yeah,
been like that.
but we haven't been doing that.
Usually we've had information about something, well,
Oh, yeah,
because of the thoroughness, usually we've been talking about something for a while before we get to an action
Right.
item, so it's been at least de facto, if not written out, information only, action next month. but-
I mean, I think that that's, I would say on a practical level, that's often what happens.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's mandated. Often, like, we'll have resolutions down at the school that are very like high level. The state is telling us we have to do this and don't worry about it. It's on for action tonight, but it's like this rote thing. And that's not something that we would have been like a prelude to this unimportant document that will be coming to you next month. Like, it's definitely not. And I don't feel like there's a ton of value to do that. I feel like what I want to do is have some discretion to not put things in your plate where it's like, you know, if I'm presenting this thing to you on Friday and it's like on for action, you know, $200,000 going towards a smart meter, like I have enough sense that that's not appropriate. Like,
Right, I think where it's important is when there's items that have high community interest, then it's essential, I think, that they not just go on as action items.
mhm.
You know, that there's a sequence to it.
All right,
If it's some high level state thing that we have to rubber stamp, then I completely agree with you, but for things that really people are gonna have different viewpoints about, I think
Yeah,
it's important to have like more than one meeting about it.
the new BCPUD building isn't just like send it out on Thursday and we vote on the next Wednesday kind of.
Right.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
okay.
Well, I really
Yes.
appreciate that you've gone in and kind of just, I don't know, guided this, because I have to admit, I've never quite understood how things get placed on the agenda. So, I'm sure there was a rhyme and a reason on that, but now knowing how you're going to do that is really helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then we move forward to committee section of the agenda. I would like to, I did not do this time, but I would recommend. It's gonna, you know, it's always this balance of like, do we want this super long agenda that's really cumbersome and just like not that friendly? I would recommend that in some cases, a longer agenda actually serves our meeting better, and this is again, and what I'd recommend is, you know, again, it's a little bit more work, and if it's something that a board member would like to take on, that would be awesome. But basically, you have your structured agenda, it's pretty long, it's not that intelligible to the public at large, but to us, it all makes sense because we're super familiar with how it works. But then we have like highlights for the upcoming thing, and so it's just like a short little blurb. Hey, BEP is presenting this month, don't miss it, you know, or whatever. Something that is basically like kind of like the highlights that I was talking about before. You extract what you think is going to be of general interest to the public at large, and that's really, you know, essentially you can have something like that with, anyway, that's sort of what I'd recommend.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following you. Is that what you're publishing? There's gonna be a special section, you're gonna publish. the
No,
whole
I'm
agenda.
saying that's an appendix, you know, it's an appendage to the agenda. It's a separate thing. Johanna started doing it for school board meetings, both pre and post. So instead of just like minutes that are just like, oh my God, a zillion pages, it's like highlights of the thing. And it's like highlights for upcoming and highlights of what happened. And it, you know, again, it's just like having a lot of discretion and not putting everything in there. It's just like, this was of general interest, okay? And the reason, sorry, I'm kind of going all over the place here, but the reason that I say that is that this potential for committee updates adds a lot of bulk to your agenda. But the reason I'd suggest having it there is that it keeps it present of mind. Oh yeah, we have, you know, a resource recovery committee. And we can be like, is there anything to report for resource recovery meeting? No, but it becomes really clear when you have your 15th meeting in a row and you say land stewardship committee, nothing to report. We can be like, why do we have this committee? You know what I mean? Like it gives it more of a presence because one of the things I would recommend, not tonight, is we should revisit these committees and really think about their value and how we want to structure them. There's a lot of implications about having things as standing committees that have to be noticed, that are difficult and cumbersome to work around and have requirements around minutes and stuff like that versus ad hoc committees. I'd suggest some of the things that we have as standing committees as an example, our canyon committee meeting that is like under the umbrella of the operations committee it's not appropriate. If you even look at the way that we were talking about Canyon Road, Mark Wilson from that meeting was like, oh, I'm not ready for you to share this with the, residents of Canyon yet or whatever. Well, we're in a public meeting, so we can't even do that. So it's just like, that meeting is very finite in nature. It's like to accomplish this one goal. To me, that's like the definition of what an ad hoc committee should do. When you can form an ad hoc committee to get work done, you should go in that direction. So anyways, I would recommend what we have is basically expand that section from what I presented tonight and just have these standing committees sitting there. And sometimes you'll see like it would have an appendage where it's like on for action or, whatever.
That's what we've always had all the.
I was gonna say we've always had it,
Yeah,
and
this
I
is
think
standard,
skipped
what we've been
over.
doing.
Nobody really has
And nothing
anything
to
to
report,
report.
Yeah.
that's good, boom, boom, boom,
Finance.
but yeah, I agree, it's important to keep them on there.
Okay.
Didn't we ever used to have a mosquito?
Yeah, we decided to take it off,
Yeah,
Okay.
because we haven't met for so long.
right.
Mhm.
There you go.
All right, what my experience of our agenda is, it's somewhat comprehensive, but some things have fallen off, because when I asked, I'm like, can I get a list of all of our committees, and then looked at previous agenda, it's like, oh, what, this committee was missing from that agenda, but not there, so it's just like, be more, pick a thing and we just stick to it, they're all there all the time, or we only have them there if they're actually reporting, but I
Right,
think. we
I
should have-
guess I'm looking at the
all there all
standing
the time.
committee updates, but I appreciate that you've added the ad hoc and the volunteer. 'Cause
Yep.
You're right, those are the ones that coming down.
Okay, that's basically all I wanted to present related to that.
No, it's good. I mean, what I see happening is that we have a new, fresh set of eyes looking at what we do and how we do it and questioning why and, coming up with new ideas if,
Yeah.
it makes sense and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, and it's obviously gonna be an iterative process,
Yeah.
so I appreciate your feedback and
Yeah.
I welcome it.
Yeah, we appreciate your, innovative thinking too, right? So. All right, well, let's keep going through our new format here.
And the only thing, not to belabor, I just want to talk about communication, because I feel like that's what we're doing right now. And this is just a sidebar to mention and think about in the future. That sign that we had, for during the drought, at the, entry into the town. I thought was a great way to communicate to our community, about what's happening with our current water usage, and it was very effective. And now I notice, of course, that's taken over by the, how many days have we been without our post office, which I appreciate. But if we were to come into another drought, say this summer, I just wonder when we might be able to have that space back, because it's so effective. So,
Okay.
Well, I think we talked about that sign when they wanted to put it up, and we sort
Oh.
of gave them permission to do so, because we thought it was a community focused sign that would benefit the town and keep the post office in people's, top of mind. But I think if we wanted to take it back, we probably could.
Anytime, yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Or we'd make space, we'd make more space maybe for the post office sign, because I think at this point you want to keep it up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate it.
Yeah. I know you're not feeling up.
I have my own ideas about the post office,
Okay.
so. Okay, we ready to move on with our agenda?
Yep.
Okay, so here we are to committee recommendations on for action, item 8, personnel committee. And administrative structure and appointment of the assistant general manager. And I think what we have decided to do maybe is to discuss this further under item 13, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Takes us to resolutions and legislative approvals. Item 9, notice of determination of appropriations limit for fiscal 24-25, and then the binders is the proposed notice of determination, which I guess everybody gets in the mail, is that right?
This is the one that I was saying actually gets just posted.
Just posted.
Yeah, so we'll post it on the in the hearsay, on the office door, and on next door.
Okay, do you need a vote then to approve this notice?
It's a resolution, right?
No, it's a notice.
Notice of determination.
Notice of determination, yeah, no, yes, so sorry. There will be two resolutions coming related to this next time. This is what I already presented to you. I think what I wanted was basically your approval on the language.
On the notice.
So I don't, whether you vote on it or not is like kind of a moot point, but just,
Oh,
We
okay,
usually do that.
okay, yeah. All right, well, let's cover our butts and do it then. Can I get a motion to approve this notice of determination of appropriations limit for 24-25?
I so moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to resolution 722. Which is special to our director, who wants to be absent once again.
Some of us were.
For the period July 7th to October 2nd, and can we get a motion to approve resolution 722? Oh, that's it. You're not, no permission back.
I have a simple question, when, and I think I've asked this before, if it's more than 1 month, that's when we have the resolution?
And that's what I get the feeling that that's what we've been
It's been our
doing.
practice, yeah.
Anybody can miss one meeting, but if you're gonna plan on, especially if you're planning on missing 2 or more.
And
Okay,
have you historically called in or done?
Yeah,
this?
she does.
I have.
That's,
I
I
do.
remember you getting up and.
In the middle.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. That's how we call you participate, but you can't vote.
That's been our practice.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
I have another question. Would the board consider having an alternate board member in these sorts of cases? Because 3 months is, not nothing. It sort of puts more pressure on the 4 of us to be in attendance. If one of us needs to recuse ourselves or is sick, then then we're down to 3. I wonder if it's possible or legal, or has this ever been considered?
No, but I don't think it is legal.
Yeah,
I don't think you could delegate.
well, maybe what I can look into is whether she could actually vote as a Zoom participant.
Yeah, I've always wondered why I couldn't vote as a Zoom
Me too.
participant, actually. It doesn't make sense to me since we could do it during COVID.
Right.
Yeah, could you find that out?
Look into that, yeah, but I don't.
Cause
think-
that would effectively address your issue as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah,
If you can form a quorum with somebody who's,
I mean, if you've got a mixed media meeting, it seems like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
The law probably lags
I
behind.
remember
the
asking about
media.
this.
Yeah, we
Because
talked
I've,
about it.
I've come up against that a
Yeah.
few times,
Let's find
and
out.
she did quote some Brown Act. Correspondence.
Yeah, I don't know.
was it maybe relaxed during COVID, or is this a new regulation since COVID that
No,
says you
it was
can't
old.
do it over Zoom?
Well, you can just.
Let's find out.
I'll just ask.
Council, yeah, just,
Yeah.
all right,
I mean, and I can ask Jennifer if she's already looked into it, but.
yeah,
She
Alright.
definitely has, so.
all right. Let's get a motion on resolution 722, please,
I'll make a motion.
to approve resolution 722. Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
And I know I brought this up before, but just because I had my school board meeting last night, I just want to point out again. All of our resolutions, we, for whatever reason, always do by roll call. And I was told that we have to.
Oh,
So I will also look into why we're doing it differently here,
yeah,
but it's
Yeah, I
weird.
don't think we ever have.
okay.
You have to go around and say,
How do you vote? How do you vote? How do you vote? Yeah, which we.
I have no idea. I mean, it's really,
Time we've never done it, but yeah, maybe it's always been.
it's just, yeah, it's stark in my mind because we voted on
Always do it.
resolutions, yeah.
Okay, going to operational approvals, work order service contract approvals. Item 11 on our agenda is the Olema Bolinas Road and Terrace Avenue PRVs.
These are pressure reducing valves.
Okay,
They sit on Terrace and at the, in base of Mesa Road there. Right at, like in front of John Cozy's.
Yeah.
They are supposed to have regular maintenance on them. They effectively are incredibly important as the pressure, from having liquid on high coming down, and they appropriately reduce that pressure. And if they fail, you could, destroy all of the, or explode all of the toilets downtown.
Blow out the
As,
lines,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, we are behind in our maintenance, and so I would suggest you approve this. We've already scheduled the, the, the inspection. So,
Okay,
But
can I
yeah.
get a motion then to, so you're looking for authorization to accept this estimate, right?
mhm.
Okay,
$12,000.
right, right.
626.
All right, so we have a
And
estimate.
coming from somewhere there within the budget. Have you allocated for this?
Yeah, I think it's under repair and maintenance.
Okay.
Okay. So Bell Company has given us an estimate, pre-tax estimate for $12,626.20. Can I get a motion to approve that estimate?
I so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Do you want to ask any more questions about that, or you go?
I trust you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, I'll go on to employment approvals, item 12. Blake Miller, resignation of employment. Sorry to lose him. That was very sad, but he is entered his resignation effective June the 14th. And I guess we have to accept his resignation, right, formally. So can I get a motion to accept his resignation?
Yeah, I so move.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, item 13, this is promotion of Bell Wood to Assistant General Manager. And we're going to disclose that we are hiring Bell as the Assistant General Manager at a rate of $45 per hour. Can I get a motion then to approve that promotion of Bell?
I so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And item 14, job posting and announcement for a part-time administrative assistant. You need a motion to approve that, or is this? I'm not sure, it's not an employment approval, because what we're really doing is just approving the announcement, right?
Yeah, I think, if you can direct us to go fill that position, put the posting, again, I don't know exactly what the policy is around, our hiring. As I said, a similar position, I don't think even came before the board, but I just wanted to be a little more formal about.
Yeah. I'm thinking that what we would do is simply authorize you as a
Yes.
general manager
Yeah.
to fill this position.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
that's
right.
That, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it's already budgeted, so, and we do need to report out the pay rate, which is included in the job posting.
okay,
So that's,
$25 an hour.
yep,
Hours are negotiable, 16 to 20 hours a week, and it's a temporary part-time administrative aide with potential for full-time. So I think that, can we get a motion to authorize the general manager then to proceed in soliciting applicants and to fill this position?
I would make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 On to the minutes. We have the minutes of the March 20th regular meeting. Is there any proposed changes or corrections?
I have one,
Okay,
page 4.
okay. Which paragraph?
I'm not sure, it's about GM's retirement, the board members and employees attending the meeting. You see that? Let me see if I can find where it is.
Oh, yeah, that's about halfway down the page. The board members, and employees attending the meeting, thanks staff for.
Yes, I would propose we change staff to Jennifer Blackman to make it specific.
Oh, thanks staff for her many years. Yeah,
I would like to change staff to Jennifer Blackman.
very good, yes, okay.
What do you guys think about that?
Good, yeah,
Yes,
any,
yeah,
yeah.
Which paragraph are you at?
It's the
It's a
standalone
single
item,
item
but
right
5.
here For her, Benny.
Oh,
Change
yeah.
the staff to.
I would parallel that with the paragraph at the top of that parenthetical or that quotation that says, finally, staff noted this is her outgoing meeting as general manager. I would put Jennifer Blackman in there as well. Because it sounds weird calling herself staff.
I agree.
Oh, I see. Okay.
These were the last minutes that Jennifer prepared.
Okay.
And it was-
We're just fixing.
Do you think
Oh, no, no,
you
I'm
think
just
you
saying,
don't- you
she
think
was
you did that
really
right?
happy about these being her last minutes that she
I bet
ever
you
was
that's-
gonna
She
prepare.
works really hard.
It was
Yeah.
commemorating.
They're
Okay.
super, super good minutes.
Can I get a motion then to approve the minutes as amended?
That's so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any additional minutes?
The operations committee meeting minutes will come forward in June.
Okay,
And just a point there, the Zoom meeting associated with that, recording that meeting, got deleted. And so they're not gonna come as formal minutes. They will come as, meeting notes. But they're not ready.
okay. So these are the minutes that are available for us to approve.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have a meeting of the finance committee. April 15th. Any changes or corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve them?
That's good to me.
Yeah, I think, didn't we approve these in our committee?
I don't think we've done it yet.
April 15th. Oh, you approved them yourself?
Maybe?
Mm,
I think we did.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the last one? April 17th, the regular board meeting?
Yeah, I just have something to point out with these. Which is basically, Belle prepared these minutes. This is me requesting that she really spend less time on these, and these still took like 4 hours.
yeah,
So it's just, again, the minutes are a total sync here.
yeah.
And I appreciate that we've grown accustomed to these like beautiful minutes that are exhaustive. And I just kind of want to prepare you that I want to try something new.
Yeah.
Which is basically timestamps and archived audio and video.
Yeah,
And really try to minimize the amount of time that we as a staff are spending on minutes.
I would totally agree with that. I hate in my work doing meeting minutes because they're so time laborious. And I really just like meeting minutes that have action items and who's assigned in action. So I wouldn't even mind if it was as simple of write up around that, a summary of why we met and then what the action items are. Knowing also, I think you mentioned earlier, Grace, that having something like recordings where if we had to go back are really critical.
It's critical, and they have to be stored in more than one way so that, you know, when the mice get into the
Cloud.
tapes or something, the cloud.
Yeah.
Trust their
I
cloud.
think the mice are in the cloud up here.
I believe they are, but yeah, I mean, the contrast when we were having that lengthy meeting, there was so much hours of conversation turning around 3 sentences that were or were not said and meant or didn't mean something, and the notes were not specific, and
Yeah.
really was an unbelievable pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And when Jennifer was able to go back and listen to the actual tapes
Yeah.
and transcribe, it became more clear.
Yeah.
It still was a little mushy, but it was better. And so being able to have that level of precise documentation, I think is, if nothing else, because of the moratorium. Because
Mhm.
we need to be able to prove in a court of law that we are doing everything we can.
But that's going back to the recording, right? Is that-
Exactly, I mean, I think however it's kept, I just want to make sure it's kept very carefully and in more than one way.
Yeah, well, I think that's.
Have we
what it is.
digitized those recordings?
However you choose to do it, I don't mind not having it be.
No, I mean, to me, there's two separate issues. There's like what we are doing going forward, and then there's actual valuable information that's sitting on, tape decks that are corroding.
Exactly.
So it's like like that is, okay, let's digitize all of that material so that we actually, archive it in a way that it can
Yeah.
be maintained. What I would propose is, again, I wanna look at to me, this is related to the topic around our committees. It's try to get us away from mandated meetings as much, mandated standing notice meetings as much as possible to make it easier for ourselves. Move toward when they don't have to be noticed, then there's less imperative to have actual like standardized minutes. And then we can go to what I also agree, that's more valuable to me for something short and concise around what the meeting, what happened in the meeting and what are the action items from that meeting. And to me, there is value obviously in having more diligent archiving of the actual audio, and we do that in in another space. And so what I'd recommend is we basically have fewer minutes that we're having to prepare because we've moved things over to ad hoc committees where possible. And then where they do have to be noticed meetings, we are archiving those as audio or video. And then we are using our AI that we're paying for to generate notes that are searchable and have timestamps. So for instance, if you are like, hey, I'm really interested in Beth, what happened in Beth, blah, blah, blah. You basically search for Beth, find it, see a timestamp, go to the meeting and look at that portion of the meeting. Again, it's not perfect. And there's value lost in not having really beautiful minutes. But I think as a cost benefit of how we use our time in the district, it will serve our needs. It's just gonna be a transition of, getting used to a new format.
Well, I think the AI is gonna be getting better and better and better at it too. I think it's clunky now, but.
Were these prepared with AI at all, or were these by?
Yeah, so I think basically what Belle did was use the transcript that it generated and then she cleans it up a lot, but that's, that tells you how much she has to clean it up. It's also because it's not prepared in a minute format, so a lot of it is around the formatting that she has to do and stuff like that. So anyway.
Will learning get better? Some of these things get better, or maybe not?
I don't know, I mean, it's just, at least the program that we have as far as generating AI, there's two things that are generated for me, from Otter AI. One is the transcript, which just looks at a transcript, and that will obviously get better as it picks up on stuff.
Okay.
We aren't implementing like corrective, things where, no, that's, bulliness, not silliness or anything like that. It's just like from their computing. It's, getting better at recognizing voices and all of that. What was I talking about?
So we're not training our system.
No, we're not training our system. Yeah, except the only way in which we train it is that it knows voices. So we say that's Bellwood. Next time it hears a transcript, it's like, oh, that's Bellwood. Otherwise it defaults to speaker 3. So and it's very good at that. You basically tell it and it picks me up in a different meeting. I mean, maybe not now with my voice change. It's like, what happened to Georgia? So yeah, so that's I can't remember what it
You'll
is.
probably see an ad for lozenges in your feed tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's
We would support your direction to
yep.
reduce the effort.
So 4 hours on these minutes
Oh,
is,
yes.
is an improvement on previous minutes, but
I mean,
not much, or?
no, Jennifer spent 8 hours on her
Okay,
minutes.
so we cut in half. It's still more than we want to be spending on the minutes, but that's.
Yeah, and I think some of it is just like getting more efficient at it.
Yeah.
This is definitely something that we would want to train the third person in here on.
Yeah.
And getting it out of Belle's lap.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, what I was saying was Otter AI generates two things, a transcript with timestamps, and then it creates what are called meeting summaries. Meeting summaries are much more like what you're talking about, and they actually are pretty useful. They're not perfect. But for me, they're like really good at jogging my memory. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not what we discussed. Thank you, Otter, but we did say this, which is like really, it's interpretation or basically, but it's still pretty impressive, like what it can do as far as like pulling out the main, action items from a meeting. Anyway.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, sorry, that summary, it doesn't serve you well for creating standardized minutes from it. Cause you lose like who was saying what kind of, it's not a really, and it doesn't generate timestamps and stuff. All right,
April 17th, regular meeting minutes, are there any changes or corrections?
I have one,
Okay,
page 3,
yeah,
item 5 at the very bottom about the vote. That's
That's what
not
I
my memory of the vote.
Yeah. Yeah,
page 3.
Yeah, page 3.
limited water use.
Section 5.
Up for the Calvary Presbyterian Church.
Yeah,
You voted, Jack, you voted no and I abstained, as I recall.
oh, yeah, that's right, so that should say 3 in favor. Director Seidman votes no, Director Gudino abstains.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my memory of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. For sure.
what does it say right now?
It says Director Seidman abstained and it says 4 in favor, so
That wasn't right.
that's not right. That wouldn't have come out of
So
AI
we had
though. huh?
3 in favor,
so.
we had 1 no and 1 abstain.
Abstain,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
all right,
And then, I like having the time of adjournment on there as well. This one didn't get that. Based on the timestamps, it looks like it's sometime around 10 PM, but I think it's always nice to put that on there as well.
Mhm.
You could,
Yeah.
you could figure that out and add it in. I always find that just nice to have.
okay, right, well, but,
And I like the timestamps though. I found that
yeah.
a nice feature.
Yep,
That's all I have for this.
okay, anybody else have changes or corrections?
No.
Okay, get a motion to approve the minutes as corrected,
I still move.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we move on to the warrants.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about 15 items down on the first page. It's Gospel Flat Engineering Contract, RRP site. Do you know what that is?
Is that like leveling out the site after the storms and preparing it for?
Yes,
Yeah.
reopening?
yeah, what is the date on it? Does it have a date?
It
Or
was.
17.
They're all for.
Yeah, that's,
That's-
yeah, it's got it, be that. Basically,
Yeah.
after there was major water. And the site was shut down, part of,
Resource recovery.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
part of, in effort to reopen it, he came in and graded and laid rock.
Okay.
Once it had dried out and,
Okay,
Thank you.
any other questions?
I have a couple.
Yeah,
Believers Fire, share of gas pump repair. Do we gas up our fleet from the BFD? So this is kind of we share the maintenance and upkeep of that? Is that?
I'm not positive, I
I
can,
believe we do.
Yeah.
We really only, we and I believe the school district are allowed to use their gas.
Cool. I mean, that's good. It's a great thing to have.
Yeah, especially with no gas station anymore in town.
Yeah.
sorry, you're specifically asking around maintenance though,
Well,
costs?
this is an item from the warrants. I was just, it just,
It's
Brought up
running
a
as fire, yeah, and he wants to know
But
why.
how does it spell, what, do it again?
Gas pump repair.
share of gas pump repair. It's like, I guess the gas pump was down and we contributed to the repair.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know more about that relationship and.
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't understand that we shared in repairs, but it makes sense because we are, one of the big users of gal
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
any other,
Robert Gailey, hydrologic consult, so. Again, there's not much context with this.
No.
It's a $16,000
wow,
check, so I imagine it's like maybe his quarterly fee or his.
No,
you
it's
know-
not, it's around coastal permitting.
Okay,
Or when we did the when,
wells?
yeah, for the wells.
okay,
Basically, they asked us for much, as part of the resubmission, they requested much more active monitoring of the wells and reports for both wells around potential impact on those resources.
okay.
any other?
I would say a quick comment about the warrants. Things like these, I almost always have questions about the warrants. Because there just isn't really any description.
No.
I'm wondering if they can be broken up differently, kind of like as you're reorganizing things. We probably have recurring payments that go out every month or every quarter. Maybe those could be separated out and then we could have sort of one time with a, I don't know if it's possible to add a small description, but it would just. I don't know.
Okay.
It would help me. It would just.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it and
Yeah.
we can do it if it's not too much time.
It is not too much time, because otherwise I'll just keep asking questions like that.
Yeah.
That's not a big.
I mean, it's sort of,
It may be more efficient for you just to
Okay.
ask a couple of
Yeah.
questions and to do what you're suggesting.
Will do.
yeah, I mean, we can look into, like, you know, I'm sure it's extracted from QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And so
We always
there
get
are
the
items.
answer, it's just a matter of who wants to know,
But it's
No, but I
possible that
think
if we
it's
just,
good to ask the question.
yeah, extract out another column, that it will be more.
No, I think it's more
self-explanatory.
worse than it's worth, because you get your answer every time.
And they've already been paid.
That's true,
Yeah.
too. Yeah, but it's, I mean, it's a good any of the questions are good ones, it's just, I think, rather than try to break out a whole new column, it's,
Okay.
any other? All right, can I get a motion to approve the warrants?
I sent it.
Okay, second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have,
Stand up.
okay, so the meeting closing adjourned, usually we
Set the next
set the next meeting.
Yep, should be on there.
But yeah, you can check
So
it out.
we're gonna do the third Wednesday in June, or was that, I forgot what we just.
No, I
No, we're
think you
doing
said
it, yeah.
July.
Yeah, we're gonna do our regular meeting
Okay,
in June.
okay.
June 19th.
And then-
And that's gonna be a big meeting, because we have
Yeah,
a lot of
sure.
stuff from
Yeah, it
today.
sounds like
Yeah,
it's
we
gonna
did
be
it.
a long meeting.
Pushed it into the
Adjourned at
Yeah.
10. Well, that's what's wrong, you're saying, right?
10:20.
10:20.
10:20.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this, so that's what we'll generate the minutes from, so.
Well, we talked for 20 minutes about the meetings being too long.
I did notice that. It's only once a month, you know.
Yeah. Well, I feel sorry for you when you're doing those 4 AM meetings from Italy or something. There you go.
Yeah,
I can't keep going.
it's when I have to stop and go to work, because I get up, like I'll get up at 2 or something like that, and then I gotta be at work at 7 or something, I'm like, oh, if I had